Yo, yo, yo. Think I'm live. We're live, Charlie Brown. Anybody there? What's happening? I'll give it a minute for some people to show up here. Flip said he might be a little late. Jared's coming in. Just a couple listeners so far. Hello, hello. Down to one. Obama news. What's up? Obama news. We were looking at that a little bit earlier. Obama news. Wild stuff. Yeah, there's too much going on. Where is everybody? Come on. There we go. Now it's kicking up. Just waiting on Jared and Flip. Don't know when Flip will be here. He might be like 20 minutes late or so. And I got Charlie Brown begging meat from me. And here comes Jared to the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're already rolling.
Yeah.
Owner of Planets.
I own planets.
What's up, Christopher? What's up, Steve? Lots of drama. Wild stuff happening. You are owner of many planets, and I'm therapeutically correct. And Flip will be fashionably late. And I don't know if Kevin's coming. Don't know if anybody else might pop on.
Sorry, I just noticed the title.
What is it? Oh, the title of the whole thing? That is.
Yeah, hit While The Virality is hot. Oh man.
Yeah, I watched like I say, that it's I get tired of these guys. I get tired of these guys doing stuff, and then I watched 12 hours of Dehlin this week.
Did you? I watched like, I don't know, an hour, maybe two of that thing with Jody Hildebrandt's niece. That was pretty interesting. I mean, she sounded like a nutbag.
I got through.
But it was actually very big of John Dehlin to not blame any of that on the Mormon Church.
I got through all 3 hours plus of all 4 of them he released this week.
Oh,
and that's why I have a life.
Why?
Because I got to know. No, I don't know why. I mean,
no, I'm just kidding. I do the same thing.
I was just pulling stuff for this. Although I did just listen to RFM and Bill Reel's most recent one. Guess what they figured out?
What?
They finally did an episode called "The Church Isn't True." They covered it, man. They finally got to it. I mean, I was wondering why they were beating around the bush all these years.
Define what you mean by true.
They finally dropped the bomb. They dropped that bomb. So now we know where they stand.
What was it? How'd they find that out?
Oh, there's all sorts of stuff. Like there's stuff in the Book of Mormon that doesn't make sense.
What? Is it mostly? I feel like that's a pretty privileged take, right?
Privileged, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you must come from a position of privilege if you leave for historical reasons or whatever.
Yeah.
The only valid reason to leave is because you're an ally.
It didn't cover that very well at all.
Wow.
I found out that you got to be like your therapist needs to help you know if you're a proper ally or not. I found that out this week. That's why I'm therapeutically correct now.
Did you listen to the Mama Dragons episode?
No, what's that?
Oh, I thought I said it in the chat. There was just
the Natasha Helfer episode.
No, it just had several therapists on the Mama Dragons thing, and they were all talking about how to be a good ally to your trans or gay child. And
no, I didn't even want. What is this channel even? I don't even know what this channel is. Don't give me.
I don't even know. It was it's a podcast. I'll have to find
think
it
I
again
know
and
of
send
it.
it. Because that was when I was talking about all the stuff, how they were, I don't know, they were trying to tell you how to be a good ally to your kid, and one of the suggestions was to like get a pride sticker on your car or something like that. Like, oh, so just like the shallow stuff. Okay.
Well, they were talking in the Natasha Helfer episode, because really what ended up happening with that 8 passengers thing is it kind of just becomes like, I don't know, like a flex off of who's the bestest therapist and who does therapy right for like
Well,
3
they
to 4
sounded like
episodes.
they were damn near a faith crisis when they were covering that this Jody Hildebrandt lady was a licensed therapist.
Yeah, that's you got to go with licensed people, but she was licensed. No, but she was nuts though too, and
Of course she was nuts. A lot of licensed people are nuts.
Yep. Let's see. Yeah, so they went into some detail about you might think you're an ally, but you're not an ally. I have to teach some people like when they're actually being an ally or not. But that was right after saying that you've got to remain politically neutral, which they said 15 times, also while saying that you must take up all of their progressive priors too, while being politically neutral when it's time to be a therapist, because it's all hard science. Hard science.
Allyship is literally not political. It's about people's lives.
Yeah. And we get heavily trained by empirical studies of empirical super science. And the science so science that you have to pass 15 years of super science to be able to science it right. And then you don't bring in your own biases at all, except for every progressive bias there ever was.
I would love a new
the end of history.
I've decided that I would love a new like a Disney interpretation of The Emperor's New Clothes, where they the boy once the boy finally says, "But the Emperor's not wearing any clothes," some jackass from the crowd shouts, "Literally, how does that even affect you?"
Well, so maybe we should wait to get in that till Flip gets here. I don't know if we want to get into your planet's story until Flip gets here. What you're referring to?
Planet
Or you want to
stuff
go into?
I don't care what we go into.
Let's go into
what?
planets.
Sure. The planet stuff was bewildering to me.
So you're referring to Ward Radio, Midnight Mormons, and them saying that it's pretty bigoted to say Mormons think that you get a planet.
Well, so I get one angle of it, and I get the angle of it. It's kind of like when atheists sort of insultingly say "Sky Daddy," but I've always kind of thought when it, like, one of my favorite memes ever is this. It's this Christian take on an atheist meme, and the atheist meme is like it keeps zooming out, right? It shows you're this person in this state, in this continent, on this world, in this solar system, in this galaxy, and it just zooms out, and it says, and you think God gives a shit about you. Like it shows God out there pointing at like, oh yeah, I care about that guy. And then the Christian response to that is like, well, yeah, that's the point. is that how small you are compared to everything, and still God gives a shit or whatever, right? And I like that. I like when they try to like throw that shit in their face, and the Christian just kind of owns it, right? When they say you believe in a sky daddy, I think the Christian should be like, yes, like Chad, yes.
Yeah.
And instead of being like, because it is a mocking thing, it's supposed to be mocking, but just own it. And I think it's the same thing with when they say, oh, well, you Mormons think you'll get your own planets, and they try to act like, because I get that that's insulting. Just say, yes, we do. And that was one angle that Midnight Mormons took on it, was like that it's insulting. But then like the whole other angle was that no, we actually don't teach that, which doesn't make any sense because they totally do.
Well, I think they are getting nitpicky and saying that nobody says you get your own planet. Like,
sure, but
it's more inferred, but because it's all that has to be inferred.
It's
say,
not
nobody
just
ever
inferred.
says you get your own planet.
No, it's not just inferred in one of those things.
It's inferred that you get way more than a planet, I would say.
Oh yeah, well it is, but it's not just inferred. Like even like Forrest was even posting replies to people, like quoting. I don't even remember what the book was. It was like, I don't think it was Mormon Doctrine, but it was something along those lines, and it talks about getting worlds without end. And I don't know, like maybe they somehow can interpret worlds as being different than planets. But
because it says worlds. It says you will.
You get like,
what's some of those exact quotes? Do you know?
I don't know. I'll have to look at. Forrest had a bunch of replies in there, and he kept quoting it, and people were acting like.
I agree with you that it's like it's not insulting, but Carden kind of tries to take almost anything and kind of flip it around into a Mormon theory, and say, "Oh my goodness, this is this like I saw him talking one time about how saying that the church is loaded is just as gross as saying stuff about Jews hoard money or something like that." Like, come on.
Okay.
Like, come on. And
oh, here it is. Here it is. This is it. He quoted Gospel Fundamentals, and it says, "They will receive everything our Father in heaven has, and will become like Him. They will even be able to have spirit children and make new worlds for them to live on, and do all the things our Father in heaven has done." What else could that? And like he kept asking, like, what?
But it doesn't say the words "you get your own planet."
No, I know. It's like you're saying the word "world" instead of "planet." Is that your nitpick?
That does say a lot more than I remembered it saying.
No, I know, and they're like, they're like, well, that's your interpretation of it. He's like, how else could you interpret it? I don't know.
So this is a little bit of my frustration of the managerial class and how they go changing the Mormonism to change to the same gray goo that everything's getting changed into, and they're selling off everything that was ever interesting about themselves to try to fit back into the mainstream. And I mean, you know, that's one of the areas where a conservative take on Mormonism should be what's ripping them down more than like some prog take on it, you know, because I think a prog person would be like, yes, we're getting proper science now, we're not doing, whereas a conservative view would be like, why did we drop that? Why? Like, there was no reason to drop that.
Well, and then they Midnight Mormons, to try to own Jeff Durbin, like they're like, oh, and didn't you listen to when Hinckley literally said that we don't teach that? And I'm just like, are you kidding me? He lied. Like that was Hinckley lying on television.
Yeah, that's Forrest says he thought that Ward Radio and Thoughtful Faith would be the one place to hold strong on those beliefs.
No, that's us. That's we're the only place to hold strong in that belief. We're all ex-Mormons. Kevin had the best take on it when I said that your reaction to, oh, Mormon, you think you're going to get your own planet one day should just be the Chad yes. Kevin said, no, it wouldn't be that. I tell him I'm insulted that they said less than, like, only one planet because it says worlds without end or something like that. He's just owning it even harder.
I remember all the way back when I was first on the Midnight Mormons, kind of at the end of it, I said to them, like, you guys hold strong to your positions and I'll be there defending you. And in my head, in that moment, I wasn't like in that moment, I was thinking to myself, I'm calling your bluff because you guys aren't going to hold. Like, I'm not going to be the one who's being there defending anything because you guys aren't going to defend it yourself. I think you defend it somewhat, but then it just gives in. I mean, that's just the way of those things, man. I mean, you and I were talking a little bit this week about how I can't remember which philosopher it was, but they started saying as soon as you even come up with the concept of a conservative, that's all the start at the end of the thing. Because if you think that you have to sit there conserving the thing, it's already getting chipped away at. And it's kind of like a canyon. I always used to say I used to say this with women and men. Men were like rocks and women were like water. And look what water does to a canyon, man. Just like, oh, they said, no, you shall not pass. And then give it a little bit of time. And they're like, yeah, but I don't like this carpet. 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 Yeah. No, change the carpet. But the next thing, we're not. And But that's a little bit how leftism, the dialectic of it gets its way on this stuff. It's just
Well, I guess
restate it, and then it changes.
I mean, I
And
guess I
Mormonism will
remember
do the same.
I guess I remember really always trying to defend that Mormons are Christian, like as a Mormon. And even after, I'd be like, I mean, I think they're Christians because they believe that Jesus is God or whatever. And that's all I think a Christian is. But then, like, honestly, I think that was the wrong take growing up, was me defending why we're Christian. Anytime a Christian told me I wasn't a Christian, I should have just been like, whatever. I don't care how you define it.
So ship of Theseus question, like it.
Um,
This is kind of one of the interesting questions because we talked about ship of
Here, I'll be right back. I gotta get a water for him real quick.
All right. We learned on John Dehlin's podcast that Jared must go do this or he's abusive. But I guess it would be anyway. And I'm sitting here feeding my dog at the same time. Ship of Theseus, the concept that if you took a ship and replaced every single part of that ship, one by one by one by one, every little piece of it, at what point is it no longer that ship? But part of the question is too, is like, if Mormons have that question for the future of what their religion is, hasn't it already been through that at least once or twice? Because you can always say, what if Joseph Smith really resurrected right this moment and say, well, let me go check in on my church. Like if Joseph Smith or Brigham Young got resurrected today, like, let's go check in on what's going on with my Mormons. And if they looked at it, they're their hats would blow off, they'd be like, what? Of everything that's going on with it. And so what I'm saying is, like, we wonder about the future of Ship of Theseus sometimes, but the Mormonism's already been through one or two ships of Theseus, maybe 100%. I don't know if 100%. Would you call 100% ship of
close-ish? I don't know.
What would Joseph Smith recognize today if he was resurrected?
I know that Brigham Young would shit his pants to realize that we don't do polygamy anymore, because that was his really odd hill to die on. But I don't know. I mean, so much of it changed during Joseph Smith. I mean, he started with the Trinity, stopped doing the Trinity. I don't know, what exactly do we do different? We don't send married men on missions anymore, I guess, unless they're older. We're a lot more bureaucratic. It's hard to say what all we changed.
How they interact with the state would probably make them, yeah.
Oh yeah. They're I don't know. There's the whole, I mean, the gay marriage question. That was like, that would have blown his mind that it even became
a question
in the first place. So
what?
He'd probably see that declaration where they're like, we support the Respect for Marriage Act. He'd probably be like, this is why I ran for president. Or what, I don't know.
Yeah.
He'd probably be like, why that? Like, look, guys, the coffee and tea thing was just a suggestion. I didn't. He'd be pissed off that none of the Mormons were coming to his tavern anymore.
And Christopher has a pushback on that, which I think is maybe a good pushback, is the answer is that it's still the same ship. And that's kind of, you and I got into this thing of like some philosophical concepts. And I know Christopher gets into this real hard when it comes to like language games on stuff, where it just says, shut up, it means what it means type stuff. And we were talking a little bit about that this week. But I mean, that's an answer too, is that, yeah, you replaced all the parts, but it's still the ship. The ship's still the ship, man.
Well, it's I don't know. Didn't expect to find it in this book, the McGilchrist book I'm reading about the brain, the hemispheres, right? Because you obviously got the left hemisphere, which is sort of what we place emphasis on. It's in charge of language and things like that, but it's in charge of language in that it hyper focuses on like the individual parts of things, whereas the right brain can see things as a whole. The book's called The Master and His Emissary, and the idea is that the master has always been the right brain, and the left brain is his trusted emissary. And so he talks about these paradoxes. He talks about the ship of Theseus. He also talks about I don't remember the Greek name, but it's basically the heap paradox, right? Like if you see a heap of sand and somebody asks you, is that a heap? You'd say, yeah. And then, but if you pile it one grain of sand at a time, and you ask them to define exactly when it becomes a heap of sand, then we can't do it, because the 1 grain of sand is never going to make the difference, right? And he says that's sort of a left brain thing, like the hyper focusing on the individual parts. And so the left brain would be convinced through that logic that you're right, heaps cannot exist. Whereas the right brain would say, fuck you, Socrates, this is clearly a heap of sand. And like, because it looks at, and that's why the right brain would look at the ship of Theseus and it would say, this is still the ship of Theseus, because it sees the thing as greater than the sum of its parts, whereas the left brain only sees the parts, and it can only vaguely grasp the concept of a whole, in the sense that it's a bunch of individual little parts. So that's why I would say that's why I'm I think I agree with Christopher in saying that it's always the ship of Theseus.
Yeah. So the Joseph Smith, one of the things I'd imagine is like beards being gone and how much skin can be shown, and the way people dress, I think would probably melt their brains a little bit and all that sort of stuff. How much the Book of Mormon is or isn't involved. Yeah, they wouldn't recognize it already, but I'm sure they'd be happy to take up the mantle, like right where it is. Like, well, we got a couple billion whatever dollars. Well, okay, well, I'll roll with this, But the that whole concept's interesting, and it's we were talking about how it's interesting how through most religious stuff and most of the fight of words and the left and the right and the left and right brain and the left and the right people comes down to these definitional things and perception and concepts like that. And I was talking about I think they call it like nominalism, and one of the ideas is like you can do the same thing just with a chair. It's like, when's a chair not a chair? Like if I take one leg away, 2 legs away, or little bits of piece of it away. And we've always joked about like through deconstructive processes you can make people question if they even know what the crap a chair is or not. And we have all these ideals that we go putting in the frameworks, and this is one of the maybe general ideas to understand the difference between perception, between Plato and Aristotle, is that Aristotle would kind of look at all the particulars and say, from all use the concept yellow, from all these different things that we know as yellow, we can kind of get a general idea of what yellowness is. Whereas Plato would say there's an ideal yellow, and all of those other yellows are kind of like measured up against it and kind of close to it or measuring to it or something like it. And so there's that universal yellow that is what is pure yellow. And then the particulars are the things that tell you what the yellow is. And then this got so wild with the postmodernists that you had I was telling you, Deleuze and Guattari, those guys in their book, there was a book about schizophrenia and thinking schizophrenically in 1,000 Plateaus. But they talked about everything is so different in this earth that like me saying the one soda can and the other soda can are the same type of thing is crazy, because they're so separate in whatever items built them up and made them. And it's just incidental that they sort of look the same, and they're sort of like they're so different from each other. Everything is such a particular that there is no like universal concept of anything. Every single particular in the world is its own particular, and you should think schizophrenic.
What a waste of time.
Yeah.
I just keep calling it the fuck off, you know what I mean concept.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't know. I just
It works. It works in so many cases and so many things, but like,
well, that's the blurring of the boundaries thing. That's the most annoying part of like talking to postmodern thinkers is that blurring of the boundary. It's the closer you get to the boundary, the blurrier it gets, because that's if they want to convince you, like, because color is, unlike gender, actually on a spectrum. And so if you get like yellow and orange right next to each other on the spectrum, at what exact point on the spectrum does orange become yellow? And you just keep creeping closer and closer, and like each individual fragment, they won't be able to really tell you, but they know when it's full yellow and they know when it's full orange, and it's actually very obvious. It's I mean, it's that whole don't show porn in schools. Well, what really is porn?
I
Because
know it when he sees it.
I know I don't know what porn is, but you know it when you
That's
see it.
actually how it's written in the Supreme Court.
No, I know that's like I like that. I actually like that. Like the idea that fuck off. You know what porn is. Like
Yeah.
because if we do this, if we play this stupid game where you get me closer and closer to the stupid border, because you'll be like, oh, but here's these old classic paintings that show women's breasts, and I'm like, no, that's not porn. Okay, well then, how would a modern picture showing a woman's breast be porn? Well, I guess that's not technically porn either. And well, and then you get to the point where, okay, really, but would you define this bukkake party as porn? I'm like, well, yes, yes, I would.
This is, I guess, kind of going along with it. There was some drama this week. I guess we'll talk about all the stuff as we hit on them, but I don't know if anybody saw the As from Heels versus Babyface going wild. He went viral because he was complaining about Starfield's use of pronouns. And then there was something inside of Thoughtful Faith where Dennis Lang, a guy we bring up all the time, was calling Jordan Peterson a weak person because of his pronoun stuff was just him looking for an excuse to be mean to people with pronouns. But then, strangely enough, Jacob Hansen, I swear I read this, I couldn't find it again, but he was saying that he thinks it's obvious that people are born gay. And he says anybody who knows anybody who was gay when they were young knows this is true. But let me just hit on this. Colin Wright, once again, check out his thing, Swipe Right. He's got Reality's Last Stand as one of the best places to kind of go over a bunch of the misinformation on trans stuff. But he says this is a great clip where Rob Henderson is the guy who came up with luxury beliefs, saying that all these different beliefs. I read a really great piece by Mary Harrington this week talking about Burning Man, because all those people got stuck at Burning Man. But she was talking about Burning Man as like Marie Antoinette's toy village. And people usually talk about Marie Antoinette as saying let them eat cake type thing. But she said that never really happened. But one thing she actually did have was a toy fake village that she would go hang out at to give her like reminiscent ideas of like what a beautiful little village was. And it was just there for her entertainment and pleasure, but didn't actually work and serve as like a real village. And Mary was talking about how Burning Man is just like this uber rich bunch of people's take on a utopia post money society. How did she put it? She said, "But as long as you've purchased everything beforehand."
What happened to Burning Man? I've only
It got
seen like
it got
memes.
rained out, so people went to it, and it doesn't take much. It was only like it was less than an inch of rain, but just because it's at the bottom of a lake bed that just kind of stores it all and it turns into mud immediately. Like they all got just stuck there. They got stuck and couldn't move around. And then there was a bunch of stuff that turned out to be fake of people going around saying that Ebola was spreading there, but it was just that they were stuck. They were stuck and couldn't get out of there. But let's hit on him talking about this real quick.
I mean, there's this sort of shell game where, so some sort of thinkers will say that if a little girl likes dolls and likes to wear makeup, it's because she was conditioned to be this way. This is social conditioning, right? And it's the patriarchy, what have you, that inculcated those preferences in her, and that's why she likes those things. And yet, for a lot of what man to woman trans individuals, when you ask them, how did you know this? They'll often say, well, when I was a little boy, I liked to play with dolls and I liked to wear makeup and I like to do these girly things. So when a biological female likes to do certain things, they say it's conditioning. When a biological male likes to do certain things, suddenly it's innate, right? So sometimes it's innate, sometimes it's conditioning. And so there's just a lot of inconsistencies in the entire argument, right? Sometimes they'll accept arguments that we have innate personalities and preferences and so on. And other times it's all socially conditioned. I mean, there's this sort of shell game where
so that's kind of a place where they go back and forth on that stuff.
No, they go back and forth on all the things. They go back and forth on the definition, like the difference between gender and sex, because it's either a totally different concept and you can't even compare the two, and sometimes they're basically the same thing.
Yeah. Um, I want to find that line that she said. This is Mary Harrington's Substack on it. Burning Man is a capitalist lie. Well, it's also kind of a commie lie or a socialist lie, because they go and pretend that it's a socialist when they get there, that everything is free and everything's this and that there, but it's because they purchased it all beforehand. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's rich people LARPing as commies.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where did it? This is, in other words, all this gift economy joy is enabled by participation in the regular cutthroat capitalist one, and enjoying it at all is predicted on having enough surplus resource in your life that you can afford to blow at least a few grand on contributing to a colossal ephemeral simulacrum of no longer needing money at all. And if you can afford to set aside the chunk of change required to resource yourself for a week long extreme climate self-catering fancy dress party, chances are you aren't living hand to mouth. In other words, it's very much like Marie Antoinette's toy farm.
That's awesome. I do love that. Anytime there's seem to be so many like rich young people things that they that require you to be rich in order. Like, I mean, Burning Man's a good example, but like I couldn't just leave my job for a week, and I don't think I could afford. I'd have to save up for quite a while to be able to afford to go to Burning Man, right?
Oh yeah, but I mean, they claim you can come in. It's only cost like $600 to get into it, but then supposedly they have all these like extra little communities that you have to pay memberships to get into those communities. But then it's all free and open from there. But in truth, they're playing through resourcefulness and creativity. But in truth, they're playing, acting at the ideal, having pre-resourced that resourcefulness and creativity via much more cutthroat reality of material competition in which they are, unlike in Black Ark City, winners and losers. Yeah, it's a pretty funny Substack on that. Anyway, oh, how to tie all this stuff together. So we were talking about categories and concepts and boundaries, and then we got the transgender pronoun stuff come up. Let me I'll pull up the as rant here.
That was, did you see Endemion's videos on it?
I haven't yet. Are they good?
Not really. It was, so one of his videos was saying, to kind of trying to take like a lukewarm take on it and be like, I don't personally agree that it's that big of a deal. But I understand being bothered by it. Anyway, he gave a take that like pissed off all of his fans, and they were like, screw you, man. And so he did another video like the very next day, basically apologizing for not thinking it was terrible, you know. It's like, no, you're right, it was terrible. I'm like, dude, just stick to your opinion. Come on. I don't.
By the pronoun police. Bethesda, there is nothing I love more than to sit down, comfy chair, turn on my PC, fire up a brand new RPG, lose myself, think, oh my God, just think of this world, just think of all the planets I can visit, all the immersive things that I can get involved with, all the fights, all the relationships, all the places I go. I'm so excited to go there. And you know, I love nothing more than, with all of that laid out in front of me, I love nothing more than to be dragged out at every fucking conceivable opportunity so you can fucking current day us. Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns! Fucking gender ambiguity! Fucking current day Californian shit! Because that's all we fucking know! Because we're boring! We're so fucking boring!
Are you talking about Starfield?
Yeah.
Because that thing's like I watched some people playing it just to stream, and like it looks good. It looks like the kind of thing I love. But I also didn't run in. I only watched them doing the regular gameplay, and I didn't see anything. Any of that stuff. But like I mean, other than indie games, like if it's corporate, that's there. There isn't a game that doesn't do that. Because that thing's like, and I remember, because it seemed like, I mean, Bethesda was way ahead of it because, they just like in the Elder Scrolls, boy, girl, no difference, whatever. It's just totally cosmetic. You can pick, and they, did that pretty early on in the world of RPGs. Well, actually, no, not really. There's a lot. Yeah, I'm trying to think. What was the first game that let you pick whether you were a boy or a girl? I don't know.
In Bethesda?
It was the
Just
first
in general.
one.
Just in
I don't-
general.
I don't know.
I know Bethesda was like one, like when I was a kid, I was like, oh, okay, you can be a girl. Okay, whatever.
I mean, I know Morrowind let you. But that's the
Yeah,
first Bethesda game that I played. I don't know about like Daggerfall
And Morrowind
or
is
whatever.
that's Elder Scrolls 3. Is that
Yeah.
Morrowind? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about the ones before that.
Starfield really does just look like space out scrolls.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, I figured
Fallout
it would.
in space with like I noticed like the what's it called, the leveling thing. It's more like a Skyrim level tree than any of the other Bethesda stuff.
I wanted to play. I was actually excited for it, but they waited too fucking long to release it, and then by the time they did, Xbox had bought everything. So now, if I want to get it, I'd have to get an Xbox.
Oh yeah, I've got a PC now. Because I think it's like I figure I will wait for them to put it on a significant sale price, and I'll get it then. But like I know I can wait to not pay full price for that. Like Fallout 4, I pre-ordered that shit. Like I've only ever pre-ordered two things in my life. I pre-ordered Fallout 4 and I pre-ordered Red Dead Redemption. And not that I don't say necessarily regret that, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that again because like Trey Parker and Matt Stone point out in South Park, like you're just giving money to some asshole in California who hasn't even finished it yet.
Yeah.
So look at this. Not only did we get RFM discussing yesterday that they found out the Mormon Church isn't true and finally hit on that subject, but we're gonna have Kara finally tell us why she left the Mormon Church.
Oh,
Like the stuff just gets more and more new and
is
outrageous.
it about
And like,
toxicity and LGBT rights?
I haven't listened to it yet, but
Well, because the reason I left the Mormon Church changes with what is a popular reason to leave the Mormon Church right now.
I didn't even think of that. Maybe it does change with what the description
No,
was.
it does. Like I swear to God, I've seen people like who I know 8 years ago were like talking with me saying, like, yeah, I don't think this Book of Mormon thing makes sense and stuff. The Book of Abraham,
Well,
that's
yeah, no-
weird, right? And now they're like, I left because I'm an ally and I couldn't stomach what they did to my LGBTQIA plus brethren
just
and
like,
sisters.
I'm just thinking about because like it's just like political people where it's like, well, I'm voting Democrat because they're opposed to involving America in foreign wars. Fast forward to 2023. Well, I'm voting Democrat because they're in favor of involving us in foreign wars. Just like that. Just like that.
So Flip, already we talked about Midnight Mormons being mad that people said you get planets, and then we talked a little bit about
Who was mad about that? Nobody in the church was mad about that, were they?
Well, we talked about the only reason.
Are we slurring
about
them
it
by
is-
calling them Midnight Mormons? Like they might say this, we're being
We're
slurred.
dead naming them. I don't
We're
care.
dead naming.
I dead name everyone.
They identify
Bruce
as Mormons.
Jenner. What Bruce Jenner was saying on his podcast was that it's insulting to say that the whole planet thing, right? That you get your own planet. And I get it. That's the same as like the atheist saying Sky Daddy or whatever. And it's like they're trying to do it in the most kind of ridiculous fashion possible, but it's still true. I think it's
it's like one of those things like, yeah, when Richard Dawkins says that, well, Catholicism is like a death cult that believes that if you eat cracker Jesus, like, and when you frame it all like that, like, yeah, you can see why it's insulting, although like it's not wrong, like that is a way to characterize all that. You just don't like the characterization. Hey, I know this guy. I've heard of these
I'm
guys.
gonna give this a shameless plug real quick, just because we want to try to get clicks on it. We got 600
it.
views already. The only thing we want is more clicks, because that just helps us to advertise it out. There's a couple versions. There's a longer version where I give a stupid speech right here, which is kind of funny. But
You look like you're about to start ranting about kids these days.
Where
I
was this
do,
abandoned
but we
shopping
cut it.
mall?
We cut it out. That's off of Redwood, but we purposely picked one like that. We were.
Well, yeah. Let me guess. You guys got your shooting permits for this. This was all union.
Seems the world done passed me by. The whole joke is that we're cowboys and we finally got to the future, and the future's already a dumb ghost town. we're here. We made it. We made it to the digital age, and it's already a ghost town.
Who's El Camino?
Oh, I don't know. It's somebody, a friend of the band's. I don't know who it is. But I'm gonna play the whole thing. I'll just show up for a second. American dream. Oh, it swears.
Oh, hey, you can't say that on television.
I said it on accident. Listen, I also talk about porno, which comes up in the therapy stuff. Here it comes. Yeah.
When did you write this?
I don't know, a while back. Oh god! But give it clicks. Go give it us some clicks. Listen to the whole
Go
thing.
clicks
man.
on
I don't
it.
even care if you watch it. I'll just give it like. You don't.
How's the new drummer? I guess he sounds pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's solid. He's a metronome. He's not quite as flashy as Wayne, but he's a metronome for sure.
Yeah, because Wayne, I don't know. I can think of like 3 drummers in the Salt Lake Valley that are as good as Wayne.
Yeah, no, Wayne's about as good as this guy's really good though. He's got like a degree in it as well and stuff.
Degree, his college is really paying off.
Yeah. Well, Wayne also had one. Wayne had one in like Brazilian percussions. He had like a master's degree in it.
Oh,
But,
yeah, that's right.
I think
That's
this
why
guy does too. Yeah.
He pops up with the samba people from time to time.
And he did like a master's thesis on the xylophone. We always wanted to get him like on the xylophone to play some show for us. It's just too much of a pain in the ass to cart a xylophone to some show.
Oh, with the samba people, we did a thing for a university in southern Utah, and we went on after, like, literally we went on after they played a rendition of a Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald on 5 marimbas. It was actually really cool, but it was also nuts. What, like talking about hauling shit around. Like I complained about hauling guitars and an amp, and like they were hauling 5 fucking marimbas around.
That's funny. So this whole week, like I was saying earlier, I watched 12 Hours of Dehlin, and besides the one that was about the kid who went to MIT, although that one kind of plays into it too, but the whole thing was kind of like therapy flexing. I watched 12 hours of showing off your therapy dong, man. Like I got so much, I got big heart therapy, man. So I'm kind of set to be scornful of therapy. I apologize if that offends anybody's religion today, but this came out this week just in time for it. This is pretty funny.
Laid off. I had to move back in with my parents. I just don't know what to do. I just want to say I see you. I hear you. I was applying to so many places and I just got discouraged. I guess the market's bad.
Losing your job must have been a very traumatic experience for you.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think we really need to process that trauma before you're even close to ready to getting back out there.
Yeah, I mean
That nose ring is
And how did that trauma you
the
boss
perfect flourish.
make you feel?
he was pretty apologetic. He just said the company was losing a lot of money.
And narcissists will often gaslight you into thinking you're the crazy one. But let me tell you something. You're not crazy.
I don't think I'm crazy.
Now, have you confronted your ex-boss about how unsafe he makes you feel? And practice on me.
No, it's just living with my parents is kind of garbage and just it's tough to bring chicks home.
Yeah, I'd really love to dive into the passive emotional abuse your parents are inflicting on you when they don't let you do that.
What? They let me. It's just my dad's always buzzing around,
taking up a lot of space, trying to make you feel small.
It just kills the mood.
You know, if your father's not respecting your boundaries, this is something we definitely need to address. You cannot be letting people walk all over
I
you.
mean, I guess it is his house.
You need to honor your own needs. And if your narcissist father wants to hang that power dynamic over your head, it might be time for you to tell him that you've reached your emotional capacity to handle his toxic behavior. Practice on me.
Yeah, but I'm staying at their house. So what do you think about the job?
I think I kind of already told you, you've been through a lot of trauma, and we need to start unpacking that bit by bit, session by session, before we even think about jobs.
No, I feel like the job is the main issue because I'm going out with my friends and, I don't want to spend money because I'm just blowing through my savings. I just feel like a loser.
You are not a loser. You are valid. You are seen. You are accepted. You are loved. Now, have you considered a vacation? Just you. Really get to know who you are.
I think a vacation is like the last thing I'd want to do. What I probably should do is just take a temp manual labor job and then just go apply to other jobs on the weekend.
Yeah, we like to say I feel instead of I think here. And just a note, but continue.
So then what do you feel about this temporary job plan?
I feel that might be beyond the scope of what you can offer. Have you considered the possibility you're gaslighting yourself?
So no.
You keep talking about jobs when you might not have the emotional capacity to deal with some of the narcissists you might find at the temp office after all you've been through.
I feel like you're draining my social battery.
This is what I'm talking about. Yes.
And maybe not applying for jobs is my coping mechanism.
Yes.
Sometimes I just disassociate.
Speak.
You know what? Maybe I should hold some space to have that conversation with my dad and my ex-boss. And maybe I should take that vacation and
Focus on my healing process. Let's go.
Yeah.
I tell you, my new favorite term is sliding. I saw this post. Somebody took a screenshot of this, like some support group where this woman was talking about how she has PCOS and she's very overweight. And it's difficult. It's more difficult for people.
What's PCOS?
With polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Oh.
It fucks with women's hormones. Vulva-bodied people's hormones, and it makes it very difficult to lose weight, like legitimately. But obviously, if you get at a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight eventually. And she's like, I'm very discouraged. I would like to know how to lose weight because I'm just sick of my body being so big. And then everybody nobody gave her advice on the diet. In the comments, they were all saying, like, girl, you just have to unpack your toxic self-flagellation and your toxic self-body shaming, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, like, not helping her solve her problem, just telling her,
Yeah, no, it's
like,
creepy.
no, you got to understand that you're perfect just the way you are. And like somebody, like the guy that posted it, called it sliding.
Yeah, no, because like what she's saying, being super fat is making me miserable. And they're saying like, no, you're not miserable. You just think that being fat is bad for some reason because of social constructs. Duh.
Guys, how do I
You're
get
actually fine. Like, and yeah, so it is absolutely gaslighting. And I like that. Gaslighting.
Yeah, guys, I need to help. I need to get off of meth. It's really fucking with me. I don't know. My teeth are falling out of my head right now, and I feel like that's probably not good for me. Oh, we need to work on your self-esteem, buddy.
Yeah.
You need to be able to go out in public proudly with your 4 teeth left. And
yeah, I'm a little bit down on therapy stuff. I think there's probably a few good therapists out there, maybe, but since I got divorced, which is now pushing how many years? Two decades. I went to 2 different therapists for a short period of time. Well, I couldn't because none of them were helpful. So, but anyway, I'm well and over it. But here's what I paid for. And at those time frames, I didn't even have insurance. So I was paying out of pocket. There was a time frame like insurance, the only insurance that was on offer was catastrophic. So I just didn't select it. So if I went to a therapist, I was paying like $100 out of pocket. And I'm going to give you the extent of the advice that the 2 of them gave me. That's it. They didn't say anything. All they did is sit and listen. And I'd even kind of, well, should I say anything else? And they'd say, well, what else you want to say? No. Oh, yeah, I see that. Oh, I understand that. You want to say anything? You want to tell me anything? No, you just keep talking. And like, well, thanks. And I've
had experience with exactly 2 therapists. One of them was we did like one session of marriage counseling, and it actually inadvertently like worked. It was very bonding because it was so cringe. Like it was, we get in there and he's like, "Where did you guys meet?" We told him BYU, Idaho, in Book of Mormon class. And he's like, "Oh, are you still practicing LDS?" And we're both like, "No." And he's like, "Do you believe in God?" And my wife's like, "No." And I was like, maybe. And he was like, "Okay." And then like 10 minutes later, he's telling us we need to base our relationship off Jesus. And my wife's like, "Well, I don't really believe in God." And he's like, "Well, just ignored it and kept talking about Jesus." And then he was like telling her, "Well, you might have a personality disorder. And so he kept saying the word chemicals. Like, we got to get you some chemicals, maybe." I was like, this sounds nefarious. Like, it sounds like somebody who's like comically anti-therapist. If they wanted to make a movie shitting on therapists, he wouldn't say we need to get you some medication. He would say we need to get you some chemicals. And then my other experience was just like that, was like just kind of sitting there listening and saying, "Oh, wow."
Yeah, they just said, "Oh, wow." They said, "Okay, nothing."
Yeah.
That's
And
valid,
so I don't
guess.
know. Here's the question, though. Here's like gun to your head. You got to choose. If you go to a life coach or a therapist,
No, like
Well,
I've said it before. At this
or do
point,
you send your
like,
kid to a life coach or a therapist?
if I-
That's the real question.
if I felt
they
like I
made
needed,
a case for it because Margie's a life coach, so they gave an advertisement for her at the end of one of them. But go ahead.
like, but I mean, I've said it before, but I really mean it. Like, I'm at the point now that, like, if I felt like, okay, I need to talk to somebody, at this point, I would go to the cathedral, put money in the collection box, and just talk to a fucking priest. You know, like, because
Yeah.
they're as good as any life coach or licensed therapist, I think. You know, I mean, I told this story before. It was like a year or two ago at work. Because one day I caused a ruckus, and I had no intention to cause a ruckus. It was just a question that was on my mind floating around for a few days. A question I asked myself, and then I asked it out loud at work, and I kind of set this thing off. And the question was simply, what is the evidence that therapy works? Just that. Because I'm like, you know, to myself, I still don't have an answer. And so that launched like a 3-hour discussion. And some people got kind of defensive, and I had to say, like, no, look, I've been to a therapist. I don't fault somebody for going to a therapist. But what's interesting is in our discussion, what we basically came to was that therapy works about as well as church for the same reasons.
Yeah, and not only that, Dehlin and Natasha Helfer spent a long period of time flexing and saying that it's basically got more hard science behind it than it really does. You know, they said we got all these double-blind hard studies, doodly. In the middle of it, I noticed Margie mentioned the Stanford prison experiment, and I go, well, that's one of the most famously botched, bad studies that there ever was. But
No, like
they talk about the double blinds and the effectiveness and the peer reviews and all that sorts of junk. And no, not only that, more and more day after day, it's coming out that most of that stuff, anything with a p-value in that world is suspect, because there's people who have been hacking away at that stuff for years. And let me see.
Google replication crisis. There's
The
something I don't know what it's called.
But
But there's a guy on
the
YouTube.
replication crisis. There's been like a second replication crisis going around with that Stanford president going out.
I wish I can't remember. There's some YouTuber that's doing like a documentary series on the replication crisis, and it's
I've got him right here. Let me pull him up.
I think you probably have.
So is it the Stanford prison experiment? Does that basically tell us that if you get a bunch of people in a group and tell them to treat other people like shit for an experiment, that they will do that?
Yeah, and that's part of the stuff, is that it came out like a whole bunch that they actually coached them a whole lot more to be as bad as they were than it's ever like let on. I bet you that might even be an experiment worth doing, even though you couldn't repeat it nowadays because you're not allowed to test on humans that way, just to see what happens, to see if it's true at all. But if you go back and look at the actual notes of that thing, they completely hacked it. It was p-hacked all to hell. Let's see here. This is the guy. Where is he at? This is a great balancing. His name
Peer
is.
review is a broken system that sits at the heart of academia. Yet for many people, including some of you, according to my comment section, you are under the impression that peer review is this sacred process that is super watertight and should catch any bad actors in the field. And that just simply isn't the case. So if that sounds like you, I'm sorry, because in this video, I'm going to burst that bubble.
What's
of yours.
going? There's something
This
going.
video, we're going to talk about all.
There's a football game going on near me.
Oh,
A high school football game. Yeah.
it's fireworks.
It's probably got like fireworks going.
Flaws of peer review. From my research, I can group these flaws into 3 different categories. And those categories are peer review is too noisy, it's too biased, and it's too expensive. So let's just jump into it, starting with peer review is too noisy. When I say that peer review is too noisy, I don't mean that it's too loud. The word noise is a term used in statistics to describe when a process is very inconsistent. And peer review, sure as heck, is inconsistent. Sometimes peer review is a super strict system where the reviewer will.
Anyway, you can check out that channel, and that one's just on peer review. He's got a couple other episodes talking of very, very specific, famous, even got to the level of becoming deans of universities, famous P hackers who've been for years messing with data and faking data through psychology. And those are people who are of the most popular, supposedly highest peer-reviewed quality. I mean,
and they're the guys that go on, NPR and go on TV and are cited as expert in psychology and researcher.
Well,
And
after
that's
the
what people go away with.
after those Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay Helen Pluckrose grievance study hoax papers, I don't know how faith in the peer review system didn't just fucking fall apart immediately.
If you think about it as religion, then everything they do makes sense.
No, it does in that case, but I'm just like I don't know. Reading some of the papers that they got through peer review, and a couple of them into scientific journals, you're like, oh, this is all just bullshit.
No, but that's things like it's like seminary, literally, where it's like as long as you get the morals right, you pass. Like grammar doesn't matter. You don't have to work very hard. Like the reality of the humanities is just that. Like as long as you get the morals right, you pass.
Yeah. Kimball says that he's somebody who's been helped with like OCD issues. He wants to point out this is the deal. Is like I think most of the stuff's like all science is that there's no real science out there. It's that very, very interested people have taken a hold of these areas and ran with them as hard as they could. And I put Dehlin and Helfer as some of those same types of interested people who change everything up through their extreme biases. And I do think that world does have real science in it, hard to shuffle it through. I think it has real therapists in it, hard to find them out. But I do also think that there's a universe where this was all done way better and it actually really followed a scientific process for years, or that we incentivized people finding no, like with the p-values, like if there's a difference, like in the p-value, like people, it should have been valued all along that somebody through scientific study finding no change or no, what do they call
negative
it? Like
results.
Negative results in some scientific study should have been as lauded as people finding a result. And this world has been, this is one area where Foucault is right. He's generally right, but I say Foucault's right-ish because Foucault would say it could only ever be that. Me in my head, I imagine a world where people really did do a lot better at all of this, but we just didn't. It all got taken over by special interest. And Helfer and Dehlin just kind of exposed. I think you can kind of see them in these episodes exposed that they can't. They try to flex their hard science muscles through this one, and then they give away instantly that they aren't that they have biases, and they give into the biases and defer to biases over truth all the way through it. And they give away the ghost, usually like back-to-back sentences. But yeah, I think there's a. I'm not saying it's.
He also mentioned that it was cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah,
which is-
exposure therapy, which Dehlin does mention in this, that OCD has some high result stuff because there's exposure therapy, which that's the opposite of trigger warnings, which he
I know.
lives off of. It's the opposite of microaggressions, which he lives off of.
But it seems to me like the more I hear about therapy, there's like 3 prominent types of therapy right now. There's the third place is, because it's kind of going out of style, is just like pushing meds on a person, right? And then you got the second place, which is the stuff that I talked about, where it's just like, oh, okay, where they just like listen to what you're saying, which is just pretty damn useless. I guess it's useful if you have no one in your life. If you're truly like very lonely and nobody will listen to you, then maybe it's nice to have someone listen to you. I don't know, but like if you have a friend, go talk to your friend. Don't pay a therapist to do that. And then, but then the most, like the kind you hear about the most is basically just affirmative therapy, which is that Ryan Long skit. It's affirming everything you do as being valid and worthful and seen or whatever. And that's just not, that's stupid.
Well, and because the other thing, I thought about this because at work for a while we had a they them. Somebody worked part time while they were off of their humanities degree, and was a they them and was stereotypically they them, and they them got overwhelmed by people asking her questions and talking to her and asking her to do things, like her job. And so
them asking them to do things.
So she went to her therapist, and because you'd think therapist, I get overwhelmed at work and I don't want to listen to people ask me questions or tell me to do things and do my job. And traditionally you think the therapist goes okay, well, let's talk about how you can learn how to, be a normal functioning person out in the world. No, that's gone. Now that therapist writes a letter and they them gets to wear earbuds all of the time, no matter what, and we can't ask her to take them off, and it doesn't matter that we can't talk to her or ask her to do things or tell her to do her job. And the system worked,
How do you deal with the they them at work? Like how do you deal with because I feel like what I would do is, because I'm not gonna fucking do they them.
I mostly
feel like what I would do is just avoid pronouns.
Yeah, I just simply that. I just avoid it because I don't want to go there. Because also it's you're obviously she.
No, I know it's very clear what you are.
Yeah, we can all see what you're doing with your hair and makeup and clothes, but no, you're a girl. It's okay. I don't give a shit.
I just came across, I forgot about this. Kara said this week that because the church changed on Google Maps, it's things from Moroni's to little crosses, that it's the collapse of Mormonism. But
that's a pretty major plank in the ship of Theseus. That is the Mormon church.
Yeah, there was this, I can't remember his name, and although I used to watch his stuff all the time, it doesn't seem like he posted much, but he wrote an open letter to the American Psychiatric or Psychological Association about the way they do a toxic masculinity to kids. That guy seems like he'd be a great type of person. But there's all sorts of people. I like this kind of joke right here, where it's kind of talking about maybe autistic type guys or something like that. But the 5 neurodivergent love languages, and I'd say this kind of goes with therapy too, is like info dumping, which you can't do info dumping because that's one of the things that about what do they call it? Mansplaining. Mansplaining more often than not comes from guys who mansplain to me. They would mansplain to Flip. They're just that type of guy. They're going to info dump. But like this guy says, it could be a love language of that person. Like they feel like they're doing you a favor or being nice or being polite to you by info dumping to you, not disrespecting you as a woman. But I'd say that goes in line if it were to be therapy. Guys who could just go talk about stuff that they like to talk about is better than sitting and dwelling on your problems and navel gazing. Parallel play. Playing video games next to each other or walking something, that's way more some baseball, as they used to say, or something like that. Support swapping.
What the fuck?
That's just kind of helping each other out to do different things that it's physical activity, I don't know what they meant by please crush my soul back into my body, but I found this cool rock button leaf and thought you would like it. You know, it's a there's obviously with men and women, it's just a different thing. And the whole concept of their joke of this is therapy for guys through this like women's lens. And then you get this thing where this lady's talking again about the Jonah Hill situation of weaponizing therapy speak. But it's funny because I would say I've seen people do it. I brought it up before, but I saw these guys talk about it's their childhood trauma that means that makes it that they have to have an open relationship or have to have multiple partners. I'm not making that up. I'm not joking. I'm telling a real scenario that this gal said that her guy started saying it to her. And yeah, that works. That, you know,
hold the emotional space you've wanted me to, and think the support you need is beyond the scope of what I can offer. Formal. It's been called like the HR-ification of therapy speak. We'll get into it. A few days ago, also, Jonah Hill's ex recently came out with some texts that are allegedly from him, in which she accuses him of being narcissistic and emotionally abusive, and essentially weaponizing therapy speak. So the texts go like this. Plain and simple, if you need surfing with men, boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with
that's
men,
that same
model.
scenario we brought up in the past, but this is them just going into more detail of everything's therapy speak nowadays, therapy speak. But we all get the choice that if we leave Mormonism and we're going to go find some ex-Mormon community, we just get to go right smack dab in the middle of that because we pretty much got John Dehlin to go to. Let's go therapize our brains. Be therapeutically correct.
I do like, so when I first saw the Jonah Hill thing, I was like, that's fairly reasonable, most of what he's saying, because, you know, don't do all this stuff. But at the same time, I don't know why you would marry somebody who models in bikinis and stuff like that if you're going to get mad that she modeled, like that's her livelihood. Is surfing, like if you need to surf with men, well, isn't she like a surfing instructor or something, and like an Instagram model? So it feels like, okay, I mean, she's just gonna trust that you guys are gonna have a long, stable Hollywood marriage, and she'll have your financial support.
Man, I can't believe I can't find that guy anymore who wrote the open letter to. Anyway, so Mormon stories. What do we need to go over? What happened with those 8 passenger people at all? A quick rundown of that.
Mormonism forced them to be terrible, terrible people. Basically, I do actually like one thing I will agree with John Dehlin on, and he tried to beat around the bush on it. Is I definitely think that Jody Hildebrandt lady is gay.
Oh yeah, and you brought that
absolutely. I mean, I thought that like right away too. I don't know what it was about it, but then like her niece talks about how she met. What is it that she said? Like, oh, if I were to have a sexual experience with one of my female friends, it wouldn't be bad because it would be like a loving connection type thing. And the niece was like, well, yeah, that's being gay. I don't know. What do you think it is?
Man, look at this. It was like 14 hours of Mormon
Christ,
stories I watched.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably 7 hours because you definitely did it on double time.
Was Whistleblowers any good?
Whistleblowers?
Legendary Mormon Whistleblowers with John Larson?
I didn't listen to that one.
Oh.
I only started it, but
that's the one that's that the topic at least seems interesting.
That does seem interesting, yeah.
So I guess there was enough because that was this week too, right? So that could have been enough to. Let me see here. So I think I want to go to the second one that they did first, because first they just kind of, I call it ambulance chasing. It was the thing of the whole front. Right when this thing came out, the very first thing Jared said is like, "How fast till John covers it?" And it was like less than a few hours. But at the same time, of course, they were going to cover this one. I don't really fault them for covering it. I think what was more interesting was their therapy flexing that they were doing. But the very first one, I thought it was the first little bit was them kind of problematizing a bunch of things about Mormonism before even getting what really is weird about these guys. There was a bunch of whining about Mormons that I thought was kind of nitpicky Mormonism before actually getting to whatever really went down with these guys. I noted you guys like took 3 hours to talk about something that really actually was hair raising. First they were just talking about, well, gee, just think of every little Mormon complaint that you could have, you know, like they say that pornography is bad. They say, you know, but I think the second one had the most interesting stuff. There was stuff in the third one they brought on his her niece or something like that. Towards the end of it, it got real grifty. If you didn't hang out for that, like they got her a bunch of money and she started freaking out with money. He's like, yeah, I can get anybody money. Oh, I'm Big Daddy Warbucks, man.
What's the gender neutral term for niece? Because she's non-binary.
Yeah, and he noticed they kept misgendering her, and
it was funny. Like right at the beginning, he's like, "Oh no, her microphone cut out. Where is she?" And I'm like,
"Oh no!
Oh, he a bigot. Ooh.
Let's. Do I have this one going? This one's going, right? Please tell me there's a transcript. Oh no! Don't tell me there's not a transcript. If there's not a transcript, I'm screwed. I'm just gonna have to tell you.
There's the chapters.
Hold on a second.
That might help you with it.
Well, it's this one that I'm looking at. Hold on. Why is there not?
Oh, that one doesn't have chapters.
You gotta be kidding me, man. Maybe it's just because I'm clicking back on the live stream of it. Hold on a second. Jeez. No! I didn't write timestamps. Why would they not have a transcript on that one? They knew they said the most dumb stuff. Man.
I know Chris is watching.
Well, crap. Well, you want to take my word for some of the stuff they say in it? I'll zip right. Dang it, man. I had good quotes to pull up, and we can go to the other ones. Their incoherent neutrality. Ew, can't believe it didn't put a transcript on that one. Well, they talked a lot about not injecting your own values. You're not an ally if you're just affirming. I think I wrote a time frame on that.
Oh yeah, that's right. You have to really, really believe.
Yeah.
I think that only exists to assume that the person saying it is an actual ally. It's just sort of one of those lift myself up by tearing you down type things. That's all.
It's not enough to go through the motions. You have to have a testimony of allyship.
Sure, but it's all people frantically scrambling up the corpses of people they've knocked down, trying to, because that whole thing, the saying true allyship, I as a straight white male tell you that true allyship is not in just affirming, it's in action or something. That implies that I'm one of those dudes. Since I understand what true allyship is, I must be one of the true allies. Puts me up the hierarchy. I'm better than the people that just slap a bumper sticker on.
Pretty much.
Shouldn't therapy be like going to a doctor? I mean, I think the stuff's gotten so ideological, and I think this whole episode 2, I think is a good example of seeing all the places where it's turned like these guys. I really, in my mind, I'm not going beyond the cliche because it's a cliche to say you're just doing religion. They're just doing religion. Like it's competing religions. That's what we're watching here. It's completing religious worldviews with kind of crap to back up like what they think.
They're each busy trying to snipe members from each other.
Yeah. And it really is in the psychology of that area where you see people feeling like they can brazenly push into saying that they should replace what religions are saying, and they say it in this episode all the time throughout it. Let's see. Let's listen to this for 1 second.
Religious OCD, where hyper-religiosity or hyper-rumination about worthiness and about religious righteousness can be its own form of OCD. So if you go to an OCD client who's got scrupulosity and you tell them, look, you just need to remember that you're a child of God and study the scriptures and pray more. They may be praying 4, 5, 6 hours a day. They may be reading the scriptures 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And they may be having ruminations constantly about their worthiness. And if you start putting pressure on them about other thoughts they need to be having to just magically, cure themselves from their OCD by just remembering you're a child of God, you can actually exacerbate their ruminations instead of neutralize them and help them, maybe free themselves from the ruminations they're having. So, there's not a cognitive intervention for OCD that involves just introducing new.
What the crap is the wrong spot? Anyway, that was stupid. Anyway, but
quite a bit of training to consider yourself LGBTQ affirming in the therapeutic fields. The second comment I wanted to make is the organization AMCAP. Another reason why
Wait, what did she say? Did she say
she
it's
says you need
difficult?
training.
You need training to be
Other therapists should
LGBTQ affirming? No, you don't. You
Yeah.
just need to be a fucking doormat.
No, you don't get to say it without
just be
being
off the table.
properly.
I have 2 points. So first of all, because you asked me the question about affirming, I think a lot of Latter-day Saints believe that they are affirming to gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender individuals with this idea that we love them. We just love this. We just hate the sin. That is not affirming. So again, how is affirming being defined, right?
It's absolutely
And
not
you need to
affirming.
have
It's
quite a bit of
tolerating.
training.
Like, what would you
to consider yourself LGBTQ affirming in the therapeutic fields? The second.
So this is all after ranting about that you got to stay politically neutral and all that sorts of stuff.
Sure, but it's the whole word affirming. It's so, I don't know. It's always telling when they shift their word to something else, because I remember the word always used to be tolerance, and I'm totally for tolerance. Hell yeah. Like, be tolerant of, I don't know, like gay people or whatever. I don't really care if you think it's a sin. Just, don't beat the shit out of them. That's all you really need to do in a society.
Oh, but you aren't a certified affirming affirmer.
I'm not an affirmer.
Bad. That's bad. And we get into badness here. We're politically neutral here. It's just bad to not be an affirming ally.
I don't want to affirm. And I'm just
No, that's bad. But we're politically neutral. We're politically. That's bad. That's bad. Bad boy. She says at one point, she goes, "Man, these people today, they just say all psychology is bunk." It's like, what? Like, it's like they're just like vaccine deniers or something like that. Yeah, there you go, lady. Not a very good thing to compare it to nowadays. Get in line with my truth, or she complained about these people of the 8 passengers. So the 8 passengers people, I guess he said they one of the ladies, I guess, was a church recommended psychologist or therapist who really preached about being anti-porn, and then you got to like almost kind of whoop yourself, like Opus, what do they call the guys, like the Opus Dei? Is it Opus Dei? The Catholic guys who will like lash themselves, or you got to put hard punishments on yourself to get over things like porn, and porn's is as bad as anything. So they are extreme, and then through that extremeness, they started putting some of their kids through some of that extremeness, and then those kids went to a neighbor's house after like being tied up or something, and now they got arrested for it. And the lady who was the therapist, she made tons of money and was one of the church's approved therapists for this stuff. And they're definitely bonkers. They're for sure bonkers. The only problem with it is that the guys flexing on the other side are also bonkers. They said they mentioned how these ladies talk about get in line with our truth or there will be consequences. Oh, they act that way, huh? That's how they act?
At least a lot of, I don't know, at least a lot of the religious people's consequences that they say will happen in another life. So they'll tell me, like, you better accept Christ or you're going to be real sad after you die. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
That's fine. These people like accept accept LGBT Christ or else you're going to not have a job and be re-educated.
They say it's been proven that restrictive diets can cause more weight gain.
Oh. I'm in a diets don't work Facebook group, and they love quoting the statistics that like 85% of people or whatever, when they try to diet, they don't succeed. And so they're like, that means diets don't work. I don't know. It kind of just sounds like people don't stick to diets.
Yeah.
Because maybe we haven't evolved to be able to handle an overabundance of calories.
But if you want to achieve losing the weight, the only way that happens is by having less calories put into your body some way or another. They say all support groups, they ain't properly bona fide. They need to be properly bona fide. She's bona fide. These guys keep making up their own terms. They talked about, they brought up a couple times ADHD and kids being punished badly for ADHD. And you're like, yeah, well, it sounds like you guys are onto something. And then they like also mentioned about parental alienation through the porn stuff. But it's like, of course, they only care about parental alienation if it puts the church in a bad light. Like they're not going to care about it if it's they're just worrying about a man being booted away from his family. If it's these guys would back up a man being booted away from his family in 10 freaking seconds if it was for their own ideological reasons.
Oh, for sure.
Is Lindsay Hansen Park listening to this episode?
Could be.
Oh, that's.
They say setting boundaries for your kids. You don't really have the right to set boundaries for your kids. You need to have enlightened boundaries. Just because you birth your children doesn't mean that you have any sort of doesn't mean that you don't owe them like a house over their head and all that sorts of stuff. And they were talking about like how these people actually said, as conservative as they are, they said our kids can be gay as soon as they're no longer living with us as adults. Like that's pretty freaking enlightened to me for what used to be like a family like this. You know what I mean? They just say it can't happen under our roof. And these guys said the lady should lose her license just for even playing around with that thought at all.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's. I'd like to hear them. I would like to hear her take on Jordan Peterson losing his license in Ontario.
Yeah.
For one of the things he lost it for was criticizing Trudeau, which is pretty fucking. what a monster.
Well, she says multiple times in this that as a proper therapist, you need to come out and speak against religions, and because we have the honest truth, the capital T truth on our side, and you just kind of go, fine, lady, but like, don't be pissed that religion says that you're not in the religion anymore. You're out of it.
Well, but she did the thing where she's trying to pretend that she wanted to still be part of it.
Yeah.
Because she got excommunicated for telling kids to jack off all the time and be gay.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can't believe they kicked me out. I love being Mormon. They kicked me out just for preaching against the rules.
There's a quote in this one that I wanted so bad. Oh my gosh. So they started talking about immigration. I don't think I'll be able to pull the moment, but they started talking about immigration and oh dang.
It's not just about that he's made this declaration. It's also that you've been being lied to. Your hard-earned the evidence of how you've been taking care of him,
I want to find it because it's something that we harp on all the time. I wish I could go right to it, but anyway, they talk about immigration, and these guys say that the immigration stuff is, of course, they're bigophobes because they mentioned like immigration and breaking laws and all that sorts of stuff, and they started talking about all people just coming for immigration are just Aladdins who are
Who skip over like 16 countries to get into this one.
Yeah, and it's just young women and their babies. That's all it is, and they're getting pushed out by the DeSantises of the world. But these guys aren't.
Don't forget the victims of capitalism and colonialism.
Oh Christ!
But anyway, the lady said the name. Dang, I want this so bad. She said the name Esmeralda in it, like just because Esmeralda or Juan come. She goes, listen. It's white supremacy unless you say her name correctly. It's Esmeralda. Because I want that quote so bad.
Yeah, Donald Trump, who's going to clean your toilets?
Yeah, I mean, it's so irritating the way she says just slightly pronounced. And of course, she doesn't say it well, like just because you kind of slightly changed your accent, but you didn't use a very good Spanish accent. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Dang it! I wish that wouldn't have that. That would have been my favorite quote ever. I'll see if I can find it while we're talking later. But screw this. Screw these guys and their dumb thing, man. I can't believe they didn't. Oh, I'm gonna write them. I'm gonna write them an angry email for once that they're gonna listen to for once. They're gonna hear a word from me finally.
Listen, you not allowing for a transcript makes it really a little bit less convenient to shit on you. So, from a fan, please. I watch 18 hours a week of your fucking podcast. Do this for you, for me.
I won't go. I mean, we can get off the link because maybe these have been boring the past couple weeks anyway. But just take my word for it that those 12 hours are people just flexing their therapy religion at it. And then he also did the 3 hours. I listened to this kid who went to MIT. That one isn't that interesting. But of course, the kid figured out that, like, by the time he figured out maybe the church isn't true, he maybe figured out that monogamy is bad and that he should never get married. But figures that out at a ripe young age of 20. He's ahead of the curve, man. The stuff they figure out. But these guys just, you guys watch the 9 hours yourself, man. Let's go look at Jacob Hansen and some of the stuff that I said that he said. This is the kind of a ship of Theseus asked in his way. Are you allowed to say if you reject all the core beliefs of the church simply because you have your name on the records of the church? So I guess this is kind of a question: is who's more Latter-day Saint, me or Dan McKillian? Because I am out. I am out. I resigned, and I probably believe, like, I bet you could give me like a stitch more than Dan McClellan, like a stitch.
Sure, I get. Like if you're talking about the true Scotsman stuff, I guess, but like you're more true Mormon than he is. But really, like most, I guess there's maybe two elements to it. I use labels that make sense, right? I just call myself an ex-Mormon because and I grew up Mormon, but I don't believe in it anymore. I'm technically still a Mormon if you want to get like bureaucratic about it. I'm still on the records. I never got it removed. But that doesn't make sense really to call myself a Mormon. And so for the most part, I'm like, yeah, if you don't believe in it, then yeah, don't call yourself a Mormon. But at the same time, I don't know, did you see that one guy that posted in Thoughtful Saints after watching Jacob's latest video? I've come to the conclusion that Dan McClellan is an atheist.
Yeah.
I was like, well, yeah, absolutely. And everybody in there was like, Steve Pineker was going to bat for him a little bit, but he's just nice.
Steve said that
he said I asked him if he believed in God, and he said yes without hesitation. And I was like, yeah, you're a lot nicer than me, Steve. He lied to you.
Yeah, I think he just directly lied to you. Because I agree with the person who says, yes, I think that he's atheist. Here's the one I said. Read this one. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You guys read
Fact.
it.
Essentially, all who experience same-sex attraction are born with that proclivity. With essentially all of my gay relatives, we all knew they were very different from a young age, like as early as 3. Go watch the home videos of gay people when they are young. It's often obvious. Scientific studies have also confirmed this. It does not mean God intentionally made them that way. Same-sex attraction is just another example of the problem of evil injustice. If you don't know how to resolve the problem of evil and injustice, then you are going to have a very bad time in your faith life. So I don't get that. Like, he's saying people are born gay. That doesn't mean that God intentionally made them gay. Aren't those at odds?
Well, that's all it is, because, like, oh, god damn it. But where he says, like, if you don't know how to resolve the problem of evil / injustice, it's like, Jacob, you don't know how. I keep asking you, like, direct moral questions, and you refuse to answer them. You just deflect. You don't have any moral answers, Jacob. We know that. But
I tend to generally disagree with that. We have absolute proof that even homosexuality is born with it, and I also don't agree that it's just socially constructed. I don't think that's sorted out. I don't think that's sorted
Yeah.
out one way or the other. I think it's a lot. I've described before the way Chomsky describes language, or the way they've broken it down, because what you have with language is you are pre-wired to learn a language. You have to be pre-wired for that. That's the reason my dog can't learn language. Well, he learns it to his level that he's pre-wired for, but he can't speak it. But you are pre-wired to learn a language, but then there's all sorts of languages that can get put in there. But then when that language gets put in there at another certain age, it then gets locked. And that's also, you know, biological. So it's almost kind of like the perfect mix of showing how things are both socially constructed and biological, because you cannot break biologically being a native speaker. You cannot be a native speaker after a certain age. It's somewhere around puberty, it locks in. You could be a native speaker of multiple languages if you're exposed to it at a younger age. So there's something almost, well, not almost, it's biological, locks you in, but it's biological that you were wired for language. But it was all socially constructed, whatever seeped in that time frame. And I think sex is just like that. I think 100% that's what it is. You are wired to be sexual. And it's also not saying that, well, somebody taught you to be gay in there or something like that, like they taught you English. One of the things they know from language is that parents have very little to do with teaching kids language. Like if they want to try to correct them or tell them stuff, it's way less than people imagine it is. You can see that in certain situations where you have foreigners from different countries and the parents speak one language and the kids just start picking up the language of their friends and the people around them much better than their parents. Not just much better, they also will have it as their preferred language. Almost always their preferred language will be kind of what the community speaks over what the parents speaks. And that happens at young ages, 3, 4, 5. They start talking like the people around them and they understand their parents. They're able to speak the language of their parents, but they'll have a preferred language choice of what the world around them is. And so it's not like putting on the parents that somehow you slipped homosexuality into their kids. Although I think certain bad or nasty instances can play towards that like a whole lot. I 100% do. And you don't have to take my word for it. People like Josh Slocum will say like the dirty little secret is like a ton of us did really actually have bad experiences in formative years and that sort of age and hate to just break it and say it to you. But I don't think that's the only thing. I don't think people had to have had bad experiences to be gay. I think it could just come from who knows what, just some, how does a foot fetish come about? You know, who knows?
One large
question.
One like large problem with a lot of this woke stuff is that they think that if you call something abnormal, you're placing some type of a moral judgment on that thing, right? Like, because you could not go to almost any Facebook page and say, I think homosexuality is abnormal or a deviation from the norm or whatever. Like you'd be blocked immediately. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's abnormal. It's clearly not the norm. And you can't. It's the same with like if you say, well, I'm not sure if they were just born that way. I'm not sure if there's a gay gene or something like that. That's you saying. That's you having a judgment call on them. No, I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm not convinced. I have no interest in.
Have you not come across? I've come across, and I know, and I believe it is true. Very gay presenting guys who are not gay at all.
Oh yeah.
So like that whole like concept doesn't land all the way, because I know all sorts of guys, especially from my younger days around Mormonism, who you might have guessed. Here's something that happens to me all the time when I go to work and I keep my world quiet and all that sort of stuff. And I'm an older man who stays fit. When women start talking to me and find out I'm straight, they get surprised that I'm straight. You know, it happens a lot to me.
Chris, I don't mean to alarm you, but that's exactly how Ex-Molex found out that she was bisexual.
Oh no! Guys, this is my coming out to myself.
It's okay, man. We'll accept you.
But I know guys who like like Jacob's in his premise right there is like you could tell from 3. Like there was a guy who I could have sworn 2 guys from my high school. Like I'd put Vegas money down. I would have put Vegas money down. And nope, to this day, married with kids and no sign of anything of that sort of deal. And also like no sort of like, I wouldn't have ever put them as people who are like overly religiously pressured, you know. They're just straight, turns out, you know. Eddie Izzard kind of claimed that for a long time. I don't know if he still claims straightness, but
I think Eddie Izzard
yeah,
is G
how
now,
people present
right?
news says how people present themselves in manners is not linked to sexual attraction, 100%. So it's like you can't really pick it up. But I do think it's biological on both ends of that. You're wired for it. Maybe you're even kind of wired that maybe those guys who kind of present gay were wired that way, but it didn't land that way. And then it gets rewired once you go through whatever the same thing that wires in what your native language now is. So it's like you're pre-wired, then there's space for social construction, and then the wiring gets locked in. So that's why I also think like, oh, just because maybe it was social constructionism that lent you towards whatever your sexual proclivities are. Once it's locked in, it's locked in too. Like it's locked in. There's no, I mean, you can maybe try to push on it, or maybe try to be like, maybe I can't go say, hey, geez, my sexuality was I'm a porn fiend. Like I could probably reel that in or something. Well, it's just what my sexual proclivity is, man. But
I do remember this guy from an LDS Facebook group who ended up I think I talked about it last time actually, kept cheating on his wife, and then eventually in this big blog post came out as polyamorous. Said I realized that it turns out I want to fuck a bunch of women, which is crazy. And that's why I could never stay faithful to my wife, is because I want to fuck a bunch of women. I was like, I think that's the reason every man that cheats on his wife, right?
yeah. And the trauma that you had in your youth means that you need to have open relationships type stuff. But I mean, I just think this stuff is, number one, that's my hunch towards stuff. I haven't proven it or anything, but I think nobody's proven it. And part of the problem is you can't do studies on people this way to even try to figure it out, really. But if you go and say something like Jacob might get screamed down by the same transgender affirming people here, because that's being essentialist. It's the transgender people are the ones, or the queer theorists. They're the ones saying that, you know, all this stuff is essentialism and it's bad and it's wrong and it's evil. You essentialist, they'll say it like a swear word. You're an essentialist.
Do you remember the 90s when the message about gay tolerance was that people's sexuality was nobody's business, and what people did in their bedrooms was nobody's business? Remember that? So, it was a long, long time ago, but it used to be that we weren't supposed to give a shit one way or another about people's private sex lives. And it's amazing how quickly that turned into, you're a bigot because you don't want to be in a polyamorous relationship with me. Oh, and you're a white supremacist for the same reason.
This video, I think Jacob was right, is just kind of calling out that like Dan, everybody just, I don't get how anybody doesn't see that him holding on to Mormonism has to be dishonest.
I know.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Can anything in the church change? Ship of Theseus. Can any of it change? How do we determine what can and can't be changed in the church? Jim Bennett. So here he is, Dennis Lane. This is what he said about Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson just had his credentials stripped from him by the elites in academia. I don't know why you think he's not persecuted by the elites in academia.
He can't be a therapist anymore. Well, he's got to go get media training if he wants to be a therapist. Man, I hope that happens and he really does film it, because that's the concept that they're going to do. He's going to film whoever gives him that training.
Dude, that would be hilarious.
He said he would.
He says Peterson is the epitome of a weak man. He is a whiner who feels persecuted by the elites in academia. He then says the real victims of oppression should stop whining. He's a drug-addicted misogynist who appeals to young single men who live in their mother's basements. He thinks that not using someone's preferred pronouns is a heroic act of bravery, when in reality it's merely childish rudeness. Hot take. Look at this. There was the announcement that Forrest Hansen was entering in there. Dennis, I saw this thing kind of going around on TikTok, and it's called Cold Takes, and it's this guy just going around dropping old boring takes. You know, he's just like, man, zoos, man, those places aren't the coolest. Like keeping animals in the cage, I'm not down with that. just cold takes.
Ooh,
cold
I
takes.
hate slavery so much.
I hate, that's the one you bring up from the other thing. Slavery, man. I'm not down with slavery. I want to see if I can find it. But yeah, I cracked me up just cold takes. Cold takes. Cold takes on. Let me see.
I've been kind of bummed out. The last like 8 months or so, YouTube has stopped flooding my algorithm with scantily clad women shittily playing the guitar.
Oh, I just thought they all gave up.
They must have, or something. I don't know. Because
Did the algorithm come back to that for you?
no, I just thought of that. I was like, no, we used to do that like every week.
Yeah.
It's you pull it up. It's like, is she good or not?
So Flip and I have been at it with Dennis Ling for years, and I've never seen him give a take that I didn't like see regurgitated specifically from like every bread.
He's
That
remarkably
is the exact
NPC
BreadTube
like.
take of every breadtuber that was ever BreadTube on Twitter.
Last interaction I had with him, he said that I was conservative adjacent.
Yeah.
Because he said he did one of those like, well, you conservatives, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, I'm not a conservative. He's like, well, you seem really conservative. And so I asked him outright, like, what are my conservative beliefs? He's like, well, you're conservative adjacent. I'm like, okay.
Good God.
I mean, somebody's got to be. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, this is all stupid. I mean, everybody knows Jordan Peterson well enough. This is a kind of been a big deal that you know who Jeff McCullough is?
Yep.
He's a Christian guy who's been talking with like Quick and Jacob and all those guys, acting like he kind of like wants to understand and see stuff eye to eye with the Mormons. He announced that he's moving to Utah to start his own ministry here, or whatever you call it. So it's people are kind of getting upset about it because they're saying like, well, his whole entire thing of like showing reach out to Mormons was because he was gonna come in and pull a sneaky sneakaroo on all of us and try to just create a whatever his little mini money church here or something.
Mini money church.
Very big deals. I've almost found the part where she says, Esmeralda, I want to get that quote.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda. So what do you guys think about the old couldn't it be for his marriage or kids? He's talking about Dan McClellan. Sure. Yeah. But yeah, that's the point.
I mean,
but I mean, I think there's some people who do that with being a bit less. What do you call it?
Dan says all of the things that like an atheist ex-Mormon would say, and then when you ask him if he's an atheist ex-Mormon, he says, "Of course not."
Yeah,
well, he'll never say that about atheism. If you ask him if he's an atheist, he'll be like, "I don't get into my personal beliefs."
Yeah.
That one should be obvious.
You say the percentage of trans queer people would be down because of that. We were also kind of looking at Dehlin's daughter.
Oh yeah, well that was
that she's asexual.
Oh god,
asexual with a high libido.
Yeah, no, so that was Chris Rice said that 40% of students at Brown University identified as LGBTQ+, and I said get rid of the TQ+, and I'll bet it's down to 20%. Then get rid of women pretending to be bisexual for clout, and it's probably down to 1%.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the Proud Boy going away for 22 years?
I haven't looked into it too much, but that's fucking insane. He wasn't even there, right?
No.
The disparate treatment is the message. That's insane.
Wasn't Joy Reid
Totally
just talking
insane.
about how easy these guys are getting off and how like it?
Well, no, anything short of public beheading is not enough for them.
Good Lord.
No, that's astounding. And then considering that, like, I mean, has anybody been prosecuted for BLM riots? Like, what about
Yeah,
the
there
head
was
of
one that
BLM?
got they point to somebody who burned down a courthouse,
And
they
actually
gave him,
got
they
okay.
gave him 40.
But I'm talking about like organizers, like BLM, like
No.
Patrice
Oh no,
Cullors.
people who weren't there and who not at all.
Patrice Cullors who
Yeah. Don't you
used
know
racist
Antifa is just
lies.
an idea. It's not an organization. It's just an idea, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, she lied. She encouraged people to go out and be violent and break the law. She says that America is systemically racist and, you know, the Constitution is a tool of white oppression, all the shit. So why is she like, she stole all the money and she's in England now, I think, isn't she?
Yeah, I do believe so. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's genuinely terrifying. Because my attitude is they all should have gotten some punishment. Conspiracy-driven anti-government riots are illegal in America. That should be the message. But the message is very much riot for the right side or you are in big, big trouble.
Yeah, it's been pretty outrageous that they try to do that, and I mean, yeah, I mean, what can you even say about it? It's just
30 years, 22
what
years.
Simon Cooper says is open communism. Yeah, I mean, it is the weaponized Department of Justice, big time.
Yeah,
and
that's how gulags are working now.
Yeah,
in America.
Let's
Such a good point, Diane. And we talk about this idea of psychogeographies, right? The idea that anyone alive today is entangled in this complex web of semiotics based on their geopolitical, bioethical, socioeconomic, ethno-linguistic positionality, right? And so
For a moment, because I wasn't watching the screen, and I thought
our
this was
own
an actual
meta-ontologies,
guest on.
because at the end of the day, we can't just
You thought it
reify
was
the
what?
interesting.
I thought it was a guest on John Dehlin, just for a moment.
Artificial
Because you can't tell;
epistemologies
it's so good.
that underpin our given perceptual paradigms. Rather, we must each intentionally create a space, a heuristic bubble, if you will, where resonant hermeneutics can unfold in a postmodern agora of ideation. Agora, of course, referring to the ancient Greek public space where intellectual alchemies once occurred. And it's this reimagining of recursive thought cosmogonies that's so crucial to the future of not only the current discourse, Diane, but of human consciousness itself. That's such a good point, Diane. And we talk about this idea.
Yeah.
Good God.
That's amazing. It's spot on.
She must be well read.
Did she go to college or does she just listen to NPR?
Yeah, that's true.
And at the moment, why are we not seeing them going around and setting cars on fire? There is a Jordan Peterson was featured as the incel god in he inspired a movie by Olivia Wilde starring Harry Styles a little while ago. I brought it up to Jordan, and
the incel god.
He was the king of the incels. Yes, this incel.
I am so pissed to hear this.
Dennis.
Jordan laughed it off in classic him fashion.
Yeah, but as a guy who opened for Jordan Peterson on harmonica, I've been to some of his shows. Jordan Peterson recognized this demographic early, and he had the courage to speak directly to it. And if you want to see me break out in tears, have me tell you the stories about the people who went up to Jordan Peterson and said, I was smoking weed, masturbating in my parents' basement. And 6 months later, I've got a job, I've got prospects, I've got a fiance, et cetera, et cetera. And to turn him into the incel king or whatever, no, Jordan Peterson tried to become the one person answer to the world uncle shortage.
Oh, that goes against Dennis Lang's CNN cold take, man. I don't get what.
It's weird because Dennis Lang is usually so insightful. I can tell he's really thought out his positions. I was actually looking for it. I can't find it. I had a very brief exchange with him. I won't be able to find it.
Won't work.
No, it's funny because I don't know. It's almost like it's almost like Weinstein was talking directly to Dennis right there. Like the guy, like he actually said he appeals to incels in their mother's basement, and then Eric Weinstein comes on here. You have no idea how many guys I've talked to that said I was just smoking pot and jerking off in my mom's basement, and then I found Jordan Peterson and I quit doing that. I remember that. I remember that. Like they made it sound like he was crying about being called the incel king in Olivia Wilde's movie on Piers Morgan, because he did tear up. He said that you've been called this incel king, but like you've been called this champion of young men or whatever by Olivia Wilde's movie or something. And he kind of teared up and he's like, okay, and like, what a terrible thing, right? Like, what's so wrong with trying to tell some young man that there's hope somewhere?
If you hate men because you have ascribed to a sexist conspiracy theory, it all makes sense.
Well, yeah, if you ascribe to the idea that we
I
live
mean,
in a
John
patriarchy
Dehlin
where
hates
everything
that
is
he's a
better for
straight
men.
white male.
Oh, he should. I
And-
hate that he's a straight white male.
God, it's okay. We hate you too.
Okay. Let me. I'm still gonna find that stupid quote of that lady giving that name that way, but I'm gonna pull that. But so let me give you something to entertain yourselves with in the meantime. Check this out.
Oh, this is
Hey.
If you start me up, baby, start me up, will never stop. Baby, start me up, baby, start me up, will never stop. I've been running hard, got the chicken gonna blow my top. Baby, start me up, baby, start me up, will never stop. You make a grown man cry. You make a grown man cry. To make a grown man cry. Turn off the oil, the gasoline. I ride smooth. She's a clean machine. It started up. Keep on the start again.
I think I found about where it is. Hold on.
It's so creepy. It's always so nuts to me that comedians making fun of popular music make better popular music than the actual popular musicians.
Yeah. So this just went on the rant about immigrants, and then of course these guys talk about you don't know about the hungry
someone that
mothers
actually
or
needed to
whatever.
immigrate to the United States. No respect at all. Yeah.
This is white privilege and white supremacy at its finest. I mean, if you're gonna say the names, at least learn how to say them correctly. It's Esmeralda.
Oh my god! I just wanted.
That's like my favorite quote ever.
I wish, like, if I ever got the chance, I would get this lady in a room on camera, and I would just pull up flashcards of. We'll start with Portuguese names.
I know.
and then we'll move on.
I imagine you say that.
Wow. Chinese names. Oh, gotta listen to that again.
Esmeralda.
Mentioning Jose and what Esmeralda, like what feeling did that give you in terms of just her level of compassion and respect for for immigrants?
Obviously no empathy there. Like I wonder if she's ever met an immigrant before or someone that actually needed to immigrate to the United States.
Who in America
no
has
respect.
met an immigrant? Come on.
Yeah.
This is white privilege and white supremacy at its finest. I mean, if you're gonna say the names, at least learn how to say them correctly. It's Esmeralda.
Yeah.
White supremacy at its finest is mispronouncing names. Was it Brazilian supremacy that got them to pronounce my name Elder Higidon like the whole time I was there? Like how do you?
Is that brown privilege, man?
I was so insulted by them.
I gotta listen to this on slow time.
This is white privilege and white supremacy at its finest.
Oh, the finest.
I mean, if you're gonna say the names, at least learn how to say them correctly. It's
Correctly.
Esmeralda.
Does everybody sound that drunk when you slow them down?
I guess so.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
I think she didn't even say it very. She didn't say that one very well. Esmeralda. Let's say.
Is this okay, Robin DiAngelo? Jesus Christ!
Let's listen to it one more time because I gotta like in slow motion. How good is her pronunciation?
And before
Too slow.
someone that actually
This is white privilege
Privilege.
and white supremacy at its finest.
All right, listen to the pronunciation.
I mean, if you're gonna
Mommy.
say the names, at least learn how to say them correctly.
Correctly.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
She like used
creepy,
it. It's like
slow
she
down.
couldn't roll the R, so she actually used a D sound. It's like it says Medalda.
That's my favorite quote ever. I mean, there's been a lot of dumb ones on Dehlin, but that's a good one, man.
That is super classic.
Well, you sound like I feel like I don't know. I feel like if I go to my Mexican friends and I pronounce their names in a Mexican accent, that they just fucking laugh at me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like, because if you can only get halfway, don't bother. You know, it sounds worse. You're better off just saying it in pure gringo.
I know.
Like if you can get real close, okay, but I mean that's one of those things I've been saying for ages that I don't know why, because like, you know, most of the time when British people talk, it sounds really, really nice. But the way British people, like British soccer announcers, pronounce Brazilian names is like Americans. It's fine.
We've got the players from João Pessoa here today.
That's right. Ronaldinho to Kaká. It's just mad because, like, you know, the Americans say Ronaldinho, okay, but the English Ronaldinho. It's just
those of you wondering why Michael is so low in the frame today, Michael has been diagnosed with vertical dysphoria, and he is identifying with a much shorter height today.
Right now, prefer the term vertically fluid. It changes from day to day. Sometimes I might be 3 feet tall. Some days I could be as high as 9 feet tall. You never know. All I ask is that you be ready to pivot at a moment.
He dropped a half-hour stand-up bit on what was it on? On some channel they're doing like half-hour stand-up bits. They did one with Dave Smith and they did one with him.
I need to find them.
Did you see Shane Gillis has a stand-up special on Netflix?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I finally canceled my Netflix.
These guys aren't doing it on Netflix. These guys are doing it on YouTube. Dave Smith and him both
okay.
did a half-hour.
Let's notice when the changes come, and they will come.
Well, we're going to talk about Snow White today, Michael.
That's right, Michael. Disney is right now working on a live-action remake of their notorious animated hate crime from the 30s. And I say it's about time, and don't come back unless you're Puerto Rican.
The prince, who's obviously queer, it's the tights, he's singing, and yet society is pressuring him here. Assault that woman. She's unconscious, be a man.
All I could think about, Michael, was somewhere there's an old king and he's saying, son, quit flouncing around this castle and singing your show tunes. Go over there, find an unconscious woman and assault her.
No, she's, I mean, the symbolism, the kissing of the head and the engorgement. The engorgement of the head, Michael, I think we all know what's happening here.
Right. The blood rushing to the area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he pulls his hood off. This is clearly a penis the hood being taken off the penis.
Hey, come on, baby. Just kiss it on the helmet.
And there's a threesome right there. So that is the old Snow White. Luckily, they're making a new one. Michael, I notice you're a different height now. Is that correct?
Oh, Michael, it's a very stressful situation. Reliving those past traumas with the old Snow White. And sometimes in times of great stress, I can grow upwards of 9 to 10 feet tall. Now today is a just under 9 foot day, but that is now my current height. All I ask is that you see me and acknowledge my reality as the reality that you see, even if it's a different reality than you see.
We've had a problem, ironically, with Disney. Before, Michael and I went to Disney World, and we were in a long line. And by the time Michael got to the front of the line, he was too short to go on the ride.
I shoot my shot alone in my house.
I'm getting pretty close to paying $5 a month.
I
to watch
love
the
it.
rest of that.
You're what?
I'm getting pretty close to paying the $5 a month or whatever it takes to actually get to watch the rest of that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I mean, those guys weren't making stuff together for a while, but now it looks like they're back making stuff.
No, that's good.
I
That's the
haven't
other thing.
seen-
Yeah, I thought.
I haven't seen any of the new Fresh Prez yet.
Oh, see, yeah, that's the other thing is I wanted because yeah, he releases everything weeks earlier if you're a patron, right?
Yeah,
I got paid for
But-
art. I should spend some of my money on art.
but I think some of it never comes off of the Patreon. I think it stays on there.
Yeah, no, that's good. People should give him money, and he should reward those people with special shows.
Well, unless you guys want to goof around some more, I was planning on going much longer on Dehlin, but he didn't put his stupid transcripts up.
Son
I
of a
should have
bitch.
written time.
Check again. Are there transcripts now? Maybe it just
I
takes
just barely
robot.
checked.
No.
It wasn't. The
Fucking
whole
robot.
last episode, man, I wish I had it because I felt like he dropped so many. I could play him slow, disingenuous moments where he goes, "Thank you for sharing that," and he just gets bored of doing it. Like, "Oh, thank you for sharing that." Yeah. And that'd be fun to listen to, very slow. But nope, no transcript. Not gonna do it.
There was that great
Yeah.
part in. Let me see if I can find it. There was the one in. Does the one where they're interviewing her niece have a transcript?
No, that's what I was looking at.
Oh,
that's the one with Natasha Helfer?
No, I was just looking at both, but the one where he gets bored of saying thank you is the
Oh, okay.
is with his niece.
There's that great
He's like,
one. There's that great
"Oh,
part
okay."
where he mentions that people are confused about your gender identity. They think I might have been misgendering you at the beginning, and everybody else is in
Yeah,
the chat. So
yeah.
could you explain your gender identity? And she explains that she is non-binary, goes by they them pronouns. It is queer, and he then says, "Thank you so much for educating us. It was super nice of you. I know that I acknowledge that you shouldn't have to educate us like that, but we're grateful that
and
you did."
The reason
my
I thought
God,
of
you're so
going
good at
back,
groveling.
yeah, the reason I thought about going back to those clips is because we just watched the Pussies clip, and it's like, oh, it just reminds me so much
know, it'd be
of how they
great.
talk on the microphone. But let's see here.
On Monday, but people are still in line trying to make it out. How is that exodus going?
To be honest, I was a little bit happy about the whole flood thing. Me and my wife have been coming here for years, and we decided this would probably be the year that she slept with another man. But she did pick a pretty big laser, kind of just kept coming around all day saying tonight's the night. He was stretching in front of me, stuff like that. Kind of got me thinking, to be honest, like, what am I even doing? You know what I mean? I'm a school teacher in my normal job. Now I'm out here in the desert letting my wife get ran through by some guy named Laser. So when the floods happened, it was kind of saved by the bell, really, putting the kibosh on the whole thing.
Learned a long time ago, everything you do, you have to one day explain to your children. The Burning Man
Oh shit!
That one cracked me up. We had Kwaku teaching the Midnight Mormons some more esotericism, getting into the Neoplatonism stuffs, and we already talked about Apologia and the planets, and I don't know what else, man. That might be.
Yeah, I don't know why Apologia feels the need to go after Mormons so hard. That I guess all of Christianity kind of views Mormonism as like a dangerous, blasphemous cult or whatever. But I don't know. In my head, I'm like, you guys are all on the same theist team, right? Just go with that.
Yeah. I was gonna talk about the Internet of Things. Did you see that thing of that the safes, that company with safes that gave the FBI the way the information how to unlock a person's safe so they could raid it?
No.
Yeah, and that's a. I was going to say Michael Fallon's been talking about the Internet of Things for years, and part of what he's talking about is like everything you have will be online, so it will be in some way hackable. If it's not your air conditioning in your house, it could be your safe. Your freaking safe can get a. What was the name of that company? Somebody out there might know what it is, but it's called like Safety something or other, and they were able to get into their safe just because the company gave it to them.
Good Lord.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Apple wouldn't do that?
Yeah.
There was that whole thing where they were like, they were telling Apple, create this software so we can hack into this person's phone.
they
They're
would
like,
do it.
no. And we're like, fucking badass.
It was that the Muslim terrorist couple in California that went on the shooting. The police had his phone and they wanted to unlock his phone, and Apple said, no, we won't tell you how to do it. But now I guess that's over with.
What was the name of it? Liberty Safe is the name of the company. Liberty of the Safe gives feds backdoor access to customers' gun safe. Yep.
Jeez, that is scary.
And they just look like regular safes. They look like they're analog even, but wild stuff. More of the bull crap of the Lumen.
Reject modernity, embrace tradition.
Yeah. There was a good episode this week of Shermer and Weinstein talking about conspiracy theories and malinformation and misinformation. But not much else. Let me see. This is all coming up again.
Ah. Oh, hell.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
But
what are masks now? Are masks good now? Or are they bad? Are they where are we on masks?
Just yesterday, what's her name? The lady who does Biden's speaking for her. What's her name?
Jean-Pierre blah blah blah.
She said
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
She thinks about 93% of companies should be reinforcing masks.
Okay. Fuck you.
Why 93%?
I don't know. I can find the clip. What's her name again?
Karine Jean-Pierre?
Jean-Pierre Karine. That's right.
White House spokeslady.
Here it is.
School mask mandates, there's a patchwork basically of
Yeah, but here's the
protocols.
thing.
And so when the CDC is saying one thing and people are obviously in a better place.
Here's the thing. These are guidelines by CDC. These are not mandates. Hold on. These are not mandates. These are guidelines by CDC, what they recommend, what they believe would work. It is up to the schools. It is the decisions of the districts at a level, right, to decide what they want to do with the guidelines that they've been provided by CDC. That's why we always say go to cdc.gov, where you'll get information on how that works. But I do want to say CDC advice for individual and community actions, they're tied to hospital admissions level, and want to be really clear. When you look at that, they are about 93% of the country. And so they have the best information for us. These are guidelines, to be very, very clear. These are guidelines.
Yeah,
and
we
it
heard.
is to local officials and local leaders to decide how they want to move forward. That's why what you just laid out, it's different. There's a reason why it's different, because they make the decision.
So far, but 93% of them should be.
Good Lord.
I'm gonna follow Liberty Safe. Liberty Safe was sold to Monomoy Capital Partners in 2020, a liberal East Coast investment firm. I pulled the FEC reports on the company and found approximately $400,000 over the last 10 cycles of max donations to Democrats. Really? I don't believe that. Weird.
How queer.
Oh man. So don't say anything wrong and don't own anything you shouldn't, because you'll all go to jail. And Sam Cedar, you want to do it now? Sam Cedar had a really ridiculous interview with Jesse Singal.
I've only listened to part of that. I haven't even gotten, I think, to the really juicy bits, but what I've heard, it was pretty astounding. Sam
Yeah, I
Cedar,
just didn't let him talk.
disingenuous hack.
Oh, he's an absolute hack.
I'm still a little bit confused about who he is. He was just one of the early YouTube political commentators.
Oh,
and-
he's
Sam Cedar.
He's got quite
He's
the
probably one of the
resume,
top.
actually.
He's one of the top bread tubers. Like when you're
Well, not just that. He's also like he's on Bob's Burgers, isn't he?
Yeah. When
Really?
he was
Yeah.
an actor and a voice actor for a while first, and then he moved into doing the hack politics and stuff. And he's probably the number one
Oh,
bread
wait.
tuber guy.
Because I thought like he sounds so much like Fenton from Home Movies. Is he Fenton from Home
Yeah.
Movies?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you remember when Crowder was going to debate Ethan from H3H3, and then suddenly Crowder freaked
holy
out and left?
shit!
So there was a whole thing that Crowder supposedly wouldn't debate him because he crashed the H3H3 Crowder debate about vaccines.
Huh.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, that's all noise to me now.
It became a great big huge fat thing back in the day, but
He plays Hugo in Bob's Burgers, and yeah, he's Fenton in Home Movies.
He plays
Right.
assholes. He plays insufferable assholes in all of his characters. That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it is funny because I was like, man,
Plays
you're exactly-
argumentative,
exactly like Hugo.
narcissistic, domineering assholes.
yeah. Here it is. This is a hot mess if you ever saw this. Listening to Jesse Singal, who does a lot of research on trans stuff, getting them debating was horrid.
Can be said for me. Ethan Klein from H3H3. Ethan, thanks, man, for making the time.
You're very welcome. And I just want to say, I know you called me. You said that I would be a layup.
I think I
which is
used something
fine,
like
which is
that. Yeah,
fine, and
yeah.
I think you're right because I don't think I'm a very good debater. I think you know that. So I
You're debating Hassan.
Oh, okay.
So I've prepared.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what we
So
were going to
Dan,
talk
whenever you're
about is the initial quote that happened. I think he's looking off there. The initial quote that kind of was turned into a little bit of a meme, which wasn't intentional, and was you saying you don't even have to think about it regarding the CDC. And I disagree with that. I think people should think about it. I believe, and we talked about this through Playful Ribbing, in an aggregation of medical authorities and scientific voices to make an informed and rational decision. So where do you think that I'm wrong on that?
Stephen, do you know that the Spartans are like practice man love with children?
Oh, geez. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. What did I tell you? He was going to do anything he could to avoid. Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Cedar. What a fucking nightmare.
Thank you, Stephen.
I had no idea this was going to happen. I thought Ethan was a stand-up guy. This is where we are. Yeah, I told Dave. Remember I told you? I said I guarantee you he's going to do anything he can to avoid the debate.
Well, I just think he believes that he should debate you.
No, he doesn't. He just takes advantage of women with mental health issues. Ethan Klein doesn't stand up and do his own fighting.
I gotta say,
It turns into such a crap show. But I actually think
That
Steve
rings a
should've
bell.
just-
Now I remember that. So that was
he should have just debated Sam. He kind of just freaks out and leaves. But
it's just
yeah.
So he also kind of went on Adam and Sitch and all these other channels and said that people wouldn't debate him. And Actual Justice Warrior just recently debated him. They had like a whole hour-long debate about if crime causes poverty or poverty causes crime. And
He just gets onto one point and just lectures you on it for the entire time. And
he's
if he
a total
thinks
hack.
like that was they with who's the guy that he was the guy that we were just talking about that he debated.
Actual
That called
Justice
into
Warrior?
his no, the guy that he called into his show.
Oh, Jesse Singal.
Jesse Singal. Like Emma Vigeland said something about this woman having been debunked or decredited or something, and Jesse Singal said, "Well, I don't think she's been decredited," and then started trying to make a point, and they wouldn't let him get past it. They just kept saying, "Oh, she hasn't been decredited. Tell me that again. Tell me she hasn't been decredited." And they latch onto one stupid thing, and they just don't let it go. Because Emma Vigeland is actually fucking stupid. Like she's genuinely an idiot. And watching him try to I think he knows she's an idiot, and it's hilarious watching him have to defend her.
Yeah, Jesse Singal. I mean, the way they dealt with Jesse Singal is they just talked over him. They didn't let him talk at all. If you listen to this whole debate supposedly on Adam and Sitch's channel, but it's because Jesse Singal is really well researched on all this type of stuff. I watch his on Twitter. I follow him. And he's gone over the details of all the different reports in depth. And he says the big problem with you is that right-wing people can use your work to speak against this stuff. That's your problem, don't you? You know, just harps on that forever. Like
one of their huge talking points was that like right-wing people use your reporting to make the claim that that transition isn't helpful for any gender affirming people, including adults, right? And he says, yeah, but do you think that that's an accurate representation of my work? And they're like, did you in your work say that it was helpful for adults? And he said, yes, I did. And then they said, oh, well, where did you say it? And he's like, right at the beginning. And so like, oh, like, let's see, where is it? Oh, it's like 20% into your essay or whatever. It's just, they're looking for dumb little gotchas because they.
Yeah, what little bit I heard, it was totally bad faith. It really was, just gotcha.
So some people that's all Sam Cedar does, and people kind of laud him as the king of bread tube debaters, maybe up there with Vaush or I don't know who else, but he sucks pretty hard. But anyway,
just a woke scold.
Yeah.
Vaush is just a sophist.
Yeah. So this week we brought it up before everybody else started talking about it, but they doubled down on all the Mexican food stuff on Lotus Eaters and academic.
What? Like, why waste your time on that?
Yeah. There's one on Enrique Tarrio's liberty for me, but not for thee. Where to go? Mexicans cry harder.
So it began.
So one of the things he keeps saying, which is they all say it, which is a crap take, is that they blame the Mexicans for slopping the food together. And I'm like, that's not, you haven't been to Mexico, man. Like slopping the food together is something that happened here. We talked about it here before. The burrito was invented in California. It's
burritos come from San Francisco, where everything else that you hate comes from.
When I was in Mexico, they did present stuff completely separated out. They didn't slop it together like this, and they would never slop stuff together like that in Mexico.
Also,
that's
you,
an
Sargon.
American
I love
convention.
Burritos.
Yeah,
I love the American version of it too. So.
Yeah,
but Mexicans look at you like you're committing a crime if you slop stuff together like that. Just the same.
Okay, what's more slop together than the all American fucking KFC bowl?
I mean that's who to blame.
No, hang on a second. Slop together. These guys are English. Shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie is dinner slopped together.
That's a good point, man.
Would you like a spot of toast with some fucking baked beans on it?
Yeah.
Just slap those beans on that toast. Go ahead.
It's British people's fault.
It's called Slopgate.
British people's fault that everybody thinks white people don't season their food.
Hilarious. We are so good at putting slop on a tortilla. What do you say about that, Frenchie? Is posting an L. Nobody outside the US or Mexico cares about Mexican food.
Anyway.
This is the angriest I've been at them since they defended Andrew Tate.
Yeah, defend and agitate, and then pissing on Mexican food. You guys, they get some things quite wrong. That's for dang sure.
Big misses there.
Yeah, big misses, stupid. Anyway, I bet you these guys don't pronounce Esmeralda right.
They don't say Esmeralda.
That is the height of white supremacy.
They call Mexican food slop. It's white supremacy. Oh man.
The height of white supremacy is not pronouncing something in the way that I'm about to pronounce it right now so that I can distance myself from the height of white supremacy. It's all a stupid fucking game to just distance myself from the bad thing. I claim the thing is bad and I do the thing that distances myself from it. I'm not like those other whites. I'm one of the good whites.
Did we get a cut to John Dehlin's face? Because John Dehlin pronounced it in the English way.
I know.
Esmeralda.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And she just immediately is like, oh, by the way, white supremacist John Dehlin. It's
That's
Esmeralda.
exactly right. Oh my gosh.
Because yeah, he said Esmeralda.
I didn't even pick up on that he just said it 2 seconds earlier.
Yeah, but
I did hear him say it, but I was like
he vocalized his sibilants, and Mexicans never vocalize their sibilants, not ever, ever, ever. But also, by the way, lady, that's Mexicans. Like Argentinians vocalize sibilants. They say pollo.
So how many different ways would you have to learn to say Esmeralda in order to accurately do it? Because that's kind of like talking about Africa as if it's a country. Like talking about Latino people as if they all pronounce it. Like I'd love to see her be like, if you're gonna be charitable to Flip, at least pronounce his name right. It's Felipe.
Flip.
You just did it wrong. Yeah. But that seems like that would be the ultimate test. Like, hey, lady, say my name. Say my name and prove you're not a white
Felipe.
supremacist.
Like you Latinos say it, right? Felipe.
Yeah, Felipe.
It's Felipe.
It's Felipe. You like tacos and enchiladas, like all you Latinos do.
Let's hear some white supremacy.
To what extent did you feel like she was speaking disrespectfully? Like when she starts mentioning Jose and Esmeralda, like
oh, wait a minute. He went to his mission in Guatemala.
White supremacy.
That was he purposefully chose that pronunciation. He went to his mission in Guatemala. He could pronounce it better than that. White supremacy.
What feeling did that give you in terms of just her level of compassion and respect for for immigrants?
Obviously no empathy there. Like I wonder if she's ever met an immigrant before or someone that actually needed to immigrate to the United States. No respect at all. Yeah.
This is white privilege and white supremacy at its finest. I mean, if you're gonna say the names, at least learn how to say them correctly. It's Esmeralda.
Man, she just slammed.
This is like some Cory Booker level wokeness shit. Like this is such surface level bullshit. Like bread tubers would roll their eyes at you here, lady. I don't understand. I expected more from your wokeness. I thought you were further along the path than this.
She just slammed Lynn's face in the mud so hard right there.
First of all, it's Jose.
You white supremacist. The thing that's funny about this is like there's plenty to criticize about that family. They're nuts. They're bonkers. They did bonkers things to those kids. And these guys, the stuff like it's you know, it's just like we talk about like when feminists start speaking for men. You know, that you have these people and their takes focus on such stupid things and make such stupid claims all the way through and then flex hard for their bullshit that I don't know, it's 9 straight hours of it there. And it's frustrating because you're like, yeah, that family's pretty crappy. And then you're hearing it described by this, you know, but whatever.
They have so much toxic perfectionism.
Yeah, that's all there.
They fucking duct tape their kids' wrists together. I think we could talk about that and how that's a bad thing. I don't really care about their They're microaggressions.
When is John
Fucking
gonna give up that
challengers.
ass to Gerard?
I heard that she misgendered her child as she duct taped him to a chair. That monster.
Man,
She punched
poor
him in the
kid.
face and said, "You're a bad boy." And he said, "Mom, I'm a
We're gonna have to
girl."
send money to his Venmo for a couple years for him to get over that she said his name wrong. Yeah. Well, those poor kids, but at least they've got saviors out there.
It's like it's like adding. It's like when they say adding.
It's
salt.
okay, emaciated, beaten child. John Dehlin will help you. And just send him money, and he will help you.
It's like they instead of the expression of adding salt to the wound, it's like I don't know, like adding a paper cut to the full back break paraplegic injury or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they just kept saying and repeating like, "Oh, this mother with starving children. How dare you talk about immigrants this way?" One sec. Yeah. I gotta call it good and go walk Charlie Brown pretty quick, but I just saw this Paul Joseph Washington was talking about.
Children are just a bit camera shy.
Let's see.
To the aid of all these women and children.
Come
on, there must be some women and children somewhere. As women. Maybe the women and children are just a bit camera shy. Who cares what they are? They need our urgent support. Don't forget that.
Jeez.
Goddamn.
Yeah. But I mean, that's generally how it goes down with that stuff. I mean, you see like any sort of propaganda for the stuff, and it shows like some woman crossing like that. But in some of those cases, those guys are sending money back to the women and children back over there. But it's mostly dudes. But what you can do? Pronounce their names right is what you're gonna goddamn do. If there's anything else that we were able to accomplish tonight, pronounce names right, you white supremacists.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
So chew on that while I go walk Charlie dog.
Charlie.
Sorry.
Because my
Carlito Cafe.
My given name is Charlie. So whenever I pick up food that I order on DoorDash from Mexican places or any other restaurant, because they're all staffed by Mexicans now.
Oh, that's right.
And I just go in and I've stopped saying Charles. I just say Charles. They know.
That's funny. Yeah, that's maybe I'll find some clips that I wanted to pull this time. If he didn't pull that crap on me, I'll write them an angry letter. Maybe I'll get a video or some screenshot of an angrily worded letter that they didn't put up the transcripts and they messed up my stream. Because there was other funny, stupid stuff like that all throughout that, and I can't pull it. Like that. This would have been a funnier one, but it's still pretty funny. So anyway. Bye, Esmeraldas.
Bye,
Esmeralda.
Vamos,
Charlie,
Carlos. Carlitos, vamos.
Carlito Café.
Yo te respeto, Carlos.
Chosinho.
Is Carlos an immigrante?
He's yeah.
Is he an English Spaniel?
He comes from Wyoming. That's worse than Mexico, man. You ever seen that Wyoming place? Anyway.
All right. We'll see you.
I'm off. Don't
Yep.
gaslight yourselves.